Okay, so noting that it's October 4th, 2023 and 6 p.m., I'll call the Board of Health meeting to order, and we will do a kind of roll call attendance. So Daryl Beardsley present.
Julie Dreyfus present. Diana, you're muted.
Diana Hook present.
And Rebecca, are you muted too?
It doesn't seem to be on anymore.
Oh yeah, she's not on right now.
Oh, it looks
See.
like she was just on a second ago, though.
Oh yeah, okay, she's in the waiting room. Hold on.
There she is.
Okay, Rebecca, we're taking roll call attendance. So if you'd like to announce that you're present. You're on mute though right now. Did anyone else hear her? I see her.
I can't hear her.
Can you hear
Rebecca,
me now?
now we got
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Rebecca Honeywell present.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so, and just to verify, nobody's seeing like what I'm looking at, trying to control the meeting, covering up the agenda, are they? I think Zoom manages to hide that from you. I just want to verify.
you. Yes.
What is
Okay.
it? I'm sorry, what are you asking?
If you can see the agenda, then you're fine, and there's
Oh.
nothing blocking it. So, all right. So we have tonight a continuation of our public hearing. Then we have 2 variance hearings and several other items of business. Since Matt Beavers is stuck in traffic and delayed, I want to ask, so for the public hearing on our regulations, we can essentially open that, but then one option would be to wait until he comes, because if we want to vote on anything this evening, we would just have to keep track of what he was and was not here for. Or we can fit in some other business and hope he's here. He thought maybe around 6:15, but that's hard to predict when traffic is bad. So I don't know what thoughts people might have on that.
I would recommend you wait so that he's there for everything. Because he missed one meeting, but he did go back and watch the video, so he can vote on everything now. But if he
Right.
misses any more, he wouldn't. You can only miss one meeting and go back and watch the video.
Oh, okay, I didn't know about that. Yeah, so that certainly ups it. So would people be okay with handling some of the other business?
That makes sense.
Okay. All right. And Ellen, do we need to formally open the continuation of the public hearing? Okay, so we have.
Yeah, is there any other new business? Because you're opening the meeting too.
Oh, yes. So I didn't have anything to add that was not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Are there any emergency topics anyone would like to raise at this moment for consideration? Okay. All right, now we probably have a half a minute. Not sure we can really do anything in a half a minute. Minutes for approval,
It's a good one.
9:20.
I had the tiniest of typos, but otherwise it looked great, Ellen.
Oh, yes. Always a great job, Ellen.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Seconded.
And then any further discussion? All those in favor? And I'll go last, as usual.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, I'm going to abstain because I was out of town and I haven't had a chance to review them yet. So I'm going to abstain.
Okay, and Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay, it is 6:05, and I'm going to open the continuation of our public hearing on proposed regulation changes to our regulations 1, 2, and 3. And then I'd like to ask for a motion to continue that hearing until we are joined by our other board members, member Matt Beavers.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay, so let's see.
You have an installer's permit that is under other business, number 1.
Okay,
Uh,
sure, let's take that one. Do you have any comments on that, Mark?
No, the staff went through the references. He received good references, so I'm going to recommend approval of that permit. It's a job that this person's taking on that was started at 176 Lake Street, and he will continue at that point. So just that a pre-construction conference with the new installer will be required at 176 Lake Street, and any other septic work that they wish to do.
Okay, so does anyone have any other questions for Mark on this? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the disposal works installer permit for Colantuoni Brothers?
So moved.
And it
Seconded.
is, excuse me, but is that with the condition for
I was-
person?
Oh, yes, condition
Yes,
with
condition of pre-construction.
pre-construction conference.
Thank you.
I'll move that.
Seconded.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Julie, I.
Diana Hook, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. The schedule of meeting dates. Let's see. Okay. So Ellen, do you have any special comments about this particular?
But it follows the same, schedule as any, more than likely, you'll need a meeting the beginning of July. But you can schedule that as it gets
Mhm.
towards the, later, probably May.
Okay,
Additional meetings can be scheduled whenever they're needed. This just follows the basic premise of meeting the first and third Wednesdays of the month, except July and August, and then except for school vacation weeks.
Mm.
And it just so happens that a holiday falls on the third Wednesday in June.
Oh.
yes, Juneteenth, so. Okay, and does anyone have any comments for Ellen on this?
So
Looks
Ellen,
reasonable to me, and we can always adjust as we need to.
it looks reasonable. So Ellen, does the board typically have 2 meetings in June, but this year because of that? Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like we need an extra in July. Got it.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye.
And that'll get posted on the Board of Health website, so if you ever have questions when there's a meeting, you can just go to the Board of Health website and it'll be there. And then engineers frequently look at it too. And residents.
Okay. Mark, how does 14 Forest Street look?
It's ready for approval. I don't know if the designer is online right now, but I can recommend approval. The plan, if you want to show it, and I can explain it to the board. It's a modification to an existing septic system. You'll see that the darkened area of the house is the proposed two-car garage. And presently, if you look at the very light line, the actual area of the proposed garage is going over, that's it right there, going over the building pipe. That is the pipe that goes from the house to the septic tank. So the engineer has designed a new line, a building pipe that goes from the house a little further over. It goes around the garage, onto the terrace, and then into the septic tank. It also would need to have a new distribution pipe. That's the pipe that goes from the septic tank outlet to the actual distribution box. And you'll see that one, it's kind of highlighted a little darker right there. It starts there and ends down at the distribution box for the soil absorption system, also known as a leaching area. So these changes are needed if they so wish to get a building permit to have a proposed two-car garage. And it's a fast system with the geoflows. So that's been installed, I believe, since 2000. I have a plan right here. I think it was 2014 or 15. So those will remain as is, and the new plumbing, new piping will be put in.
Okay, so basically, they had to make amendments to work around or to adjust the system so that it would be compliant. So no variances are being requested, and it's just a change to their current or their prior approved plan, I would assume.
Exactly. And because it's going to be angles in the building pipe, that's the pipe that carries the solids, they are required to put in cleanouts. So there will be cleanouts put in at 2 locations. You'll see the little circles there of the actual, and that's a terrace, so they'll have to raise that up to the top of the terrace, but they will need those because they are planning to put in change in direction on the building pipe. And if you do that, Title V requires cleanouts. They prefer you not do that, but in this case, there'd be no other way. They'd have to put the building pipe through the garage under a concrete floor, and there's a chance of freezing. So to keep it in the basement, this is the best way to do it, as designed by the designer, and I agree with them.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the, excuse me. I'll get that right. Okay. A motion to approve the septic alteration plan for 14 Forest Street.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Julie, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl, I. Okay. And is 3 Prospect Street ready for discussion, Mark?
Yes, it is ready for discussion. It's been a very long, not long, but a very interesting process because they had to abandon 2 wells. So if you want to let you put up the septic plan, but we also have a conservation plan that was very busy, but approved as of September 21st. They looked at it back in August as well. So the conservation plan is usually is overlaid onto the septic plan, but I think because it was quite a busy plan, we might have missed some of our part.
All right, let me just quickly show that in case
Yeah.
people are curious as to.
Excuse me.
Yes, it is busy.
It's a lot of tree plantings on that, and a lot of foliage and plants are being planted to replicate that area, and any poisonous type plants and so forth are being removed in this area of wetland concerns. It may be as well as variegated as a wetland as well. Just so the board knows on our plan, and so that looked fine, and conservation did approve that, and they also approved the process to be taken for the well abandonment. Originally, they were looking at maybe changing the process for the well to be abandoned, and you have 2 of them. If you look at the top part of the plan, you will see there's a little well house up there. It's in green. It's a little green square.
Oh,
And that
yes,
well
right
house
here.
has a very shallow well, 10 feet. And they are going to follow our process. They decided to Conservation Commission decided to allow them to follow the requirements in our code, so they wouldn't have to come in for a waiver from our codes. And there's another well on the property. You'll see over a little bit to the right, there's a well that needs to be decommissioned as well. It's dead center now. There's a square box that said existing well not in work condition to be decommissioned. To the very far
yes.
left side of the plan is actually where the well
Okay.
is located.
There we
So
go.
that has to be decommissioned as well. So, and then they have a new well being proposed, and that is about to the base of the plan being shown at the bottom, right about where those three arrows come together. Oh, we just lost it. It's up on the, sorry, Darrell, it's right there where the three arrows are. That's the proposed new well. So in this case, the board would need to, I'm going to recommend the board approve the new well approval conditional to the other two wells being decommissioned per state code with the appropriate documents received prior to the start of the new well. But I am going to recommend it be approved with that condition. And then there's another part to this. This goes back to 2015. If you go down a little ways, Darrell, where the house is located, proposed residence, they are putting in a new house, and it does touch some of the old house. And the reason I mention that is this is a plan that is asking for they already received permission for a 1-bedroom addition. We don't allow for a house to be relocated off, or it has to connect to some portion of the existing foundation, so which it is. And they are asking they had to change the septic tank. So that is where you see the 188.25 right there. Yep. No, so the septic tank is a new septic tank being put in. The last plan, the board did recommend that the septic tank not go in until the house was abandoned, so no one could get injured. With the tank being 11 feet from the new proposal, it's not as close to the old house, but the old house is being knocked down. I'm sure everyone will be happy about that. But outside of that, they have to put in that new septic tank. They have to put in the distribution pipe, the building pipe from the house to the tank, and then the distribution pipe from the septic tank. And it goes down to the base of the plan that's being shown right now. And it's going to connect to a new distribution box, an H20 distribution box, even though it says existing D box, distribution box. That will now, it's required that they have a new distribution box there, so it complies with our new regulations. So they're going to remove the existing. So that soil absorption system right there has been in place since 2016, and it has been reevaluated by a previous engineer, DGT, out of Framingham, and by the present engineer, Deschang, Wang, to make sure it was in proper condition, because it's been exposed so long. And they're going to be tying into the existing system, and it has been certified as being up to par. And I will require the engineer to also certify it again when the as-built comes in for the septic tank to make sure it's in appropriate condition. With that said, I would recommend approval of the septic tank and the changes on this revised septic plan. And the well, this is a dual type plan, and it has a well on it too, and that the well be approved conditional to the decommissioning of the two existing wells.
Okay, and any conditions on the tank?
The only thing I did not see is that it's going under a driveway, the building pipe. So the septic tank's fine. It's a 2-compartment. What I did not see was the sleeve or a Schedule 80 pipe, because it's going under a driveway. So I was going to add that to the pre-construction conference. Let me see if I had any other notes. Talked about the well and the decommissioning, the septic tank and the Schedule 40D box. Mention about the fact that they have a 1-bedroom addition that was approved previously, and that the house overlays the existing house. So with that said, I'm recommending the septic changes be approved. That be the septic tank and the distribution and building pipe, the H20D box, and the proposed new well, conditional to the 2 existing wells being decommissioned prior.
Okay,
I know that's a lot, but I would recommend that.
Since
to
they're on the same plan, should this all be addressed in one motion or well
Yeah,
and septic
you-
adjustments separately?
You could do that. The permits are both out there that were applied for us, so we are looking at the septic / well plan, so you could approve them together, I believe, because this plan shows both.
Ellen, do you have any preference? Is it easier to track if it's separate, well and septic?
I don't believe
One
we've done.
time, it's all in one application,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, it is. Oh,
No
okay.
plan.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's all on the same
I see.
plan too, so I
Okay.
think it'd be okay as a vote for the entire plan as it exists or presented and with those conditions.
Okay. And tell me if I miss a condition. So do
Oh.
we have a motion to approve the, sorry, I have to check the address.
Free Prospect.
Good process.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the septic and well plan for 3 Prospect Street? Conditional to decommissioning of the 2 existing wells prior to the installation of the third or the new one, and pre-construction conference prior to septic tank adjustments and associated
And
adjustments.
installation.
That's
ahead.
usually, the pre-construction is usually on the installer permit. You don't usually put that condition on a septic plan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mark had mentioned just going over things that you hadn't noted on the plan yet. Is there a way you'd like us to include that?
I think that can be handled. I can make a note on the approval stamp that they need to put in that Schedule 80 pipe or sleeve it underneath the driveway. Outside of that, the plan is in good order, and I would recommend approval of the septic plan and the wells as noted with the conditions.
Okay, so far we have for approval, the decommissioning of the 2 existing wells, and how do we want to term the other if it's not part of the pre-construction?
Prior to these drilling of the new well.
Okay, prior to the drilling of the new well, and then for the septic,
That the septic
Uh,
tank and associated piping be approved and connected to the existing soil absorption system with an H20 distribution box.
okay, so those are details that were in the plan,
They're
so
on the
we could
plan,
really
that's-
approve
that
the
is
plan.
correct.
It sounds like there really are no additional conditions that we need on the septic end.
No, because it is on the plan, and actually the decommissioning of the 2 wells is on the plan, but it doesn't state
Hmm.
when they need to
The
be
order
decommissioned
of-
and when- yeah, the order,
Hmm.
correct. Yeah.
All right, so sorry, review. So do we have a motion to approve the septic well plan for 3 Prospect Street, conditional to decommissioning of the 2 existing wells prior to drilling of the new well?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
We do
Hearing
have a
none?
member, just so you know, Dara, I don't know if you saw Matt, but he's here.
Yes, welcome, Matt. And Matt, did you hear the whole discussion for this?
I did not, so
believe?
I will not be, I'll abstain from this.
Okay. So Julie, you're up next for voting.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. So we will now return to the continuation of the public hearing. Matt, to make the voting process easier, we took care of other business until you
Sorry,
could
everyone.
arrive. No, that's fine. We got things done. So, Ellen, do we need to vote to reopen the hearing or to continue it?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
If you continue it again to a future meeting, you'll have to vote that.
Okay, yes. Okay, so we're going to continue with the public hearing. And Matt, do you just want me to screen share on the regulations and you
Yeah,
can
that's fine.
run the meeting?
I can take over afterward, after we get through this, but yeah, if you want to screen share for now, that's good.
Okay. Great, okay. And where are we again?
Regulation,
Yep,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Julie.
I was gonna say, we're second regulation, section 12, well performance tests. At least that's what my notes tell me.
Page 9 of 18.
Whoop, there we go. Whoop,
There you go.
okay.
All right, I will take over the reading. Ellen, do we have to do any of the introductory? No. we've
Yeah,
already-
yeah, maybe you should just note that what is being seen is in the italics, this text to be omitted, and new text is shown in bold.
Okay. So I will be not reading the italicized text that is being removed, and I will only be reading the sections where there is an amendment being made, which would be highlighted, or I'm sorry, bolded, not highlighted. It's highlighted on my sheet. All right. So Regulation 2, domestic water supply, subsection 12, and the section we're renaming the section and adding a new subsection in H. So the first part is just adding the words well performance test to the title of that section 12. Ellen, do I need to read the entire unchanged subsection A through G?
No, you haven't before, so you don't need to-
Perfect. That is helpful. We can skip down to 12H, where it is, this section is entirely new. Well flushing shall be performed only as necessary and only by certified well drillers or other well management professionals. Board of Health approval is required prior to flushing a well for more than 12 hours in total. The Board of Health may impose additional requirements for flushing that exceeds 12 hours in total.
Okay, so does anyone have any, well, I'll just note that the well performance test was to make a distinction from, for example, water quality testing for wells, so on that one, and then well flushing has certainly potential to impact neighboring wells if there was a lot of flushing for an extended period of time. And we didn't have any kind of control on that in the past. And so we considered this. Anyone else have any comments about these?
Rebecca has her hand raised, but I think she may be having, Rebecca, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we've got you.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just raised my hand because I remembered a question that I wanted to ask before we started. And so when we're done with this, may I ask another question?
Does it have to do with these regulations in general?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
I
then.
just, in my reading, preparing for this, I don't want to interrupt this discussion regarding this. When we're done with this, I'll explain something that I meant to mention before Julie started the reading. It has to do with the last regulation right before we started today.
Okay. All right, anyone, any comments on H and from the board? And if not, is there anyone in attendance at the meeting who has any questions or comments? Okay. So hearing none, and oh, so sorry, Matt, you're supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, it's okay. So I think none of that. Rebecca, do you want to make your general comment?
Yeah, it's actually back on, I was thinking that I should just tell you the page number. On page 7, when I read this, when I prepared for the meeting, I just started from the beginning. And I found something that I was wondering if it's just a typo or if I misinterpreted something, and I just want to ask you as a board if this was addressed when we reviewed it together, because it wasn't corrected in this document. On page 7, G and H, G was moved down to H. is that just a typo that it should be G at the bottom?
No, G is now becoming all the text there, and the old G is now becoming H.
But shouldn't just the new, what's listed, just all be G?
No, because they're two separate points. We added basically a new point, which is now G, which is that any well for semi-public water supply should meet the following requirements.
Oh, okay. So that's just going to be G, and then H is at the bottom, so it's still H. I was thinking it should just all be G, but so
No, I think it's
sorry.
still
That was just a little English. and I
Right.
guess you probably addressed it at the last meeting, and it's not corrected here, so I just wanted to make sure. That's all.
there's nothing to correct. This is the way it should read. Okay, sounds good. So should we move on to
But
page
it's in
10?
italics for being eliminated, and it's in the bottom as H.
Yeah, because
So-
we're moving it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding it properly. And so thanks for letting me go over that.
Okay.
All
Sorry
right.
to interrupt.
Section 15, here we're renaming the title of the section and adding language to the subsection A, renaming subsection B, and adding a new subsection C. So 15, well abandonment and decommissioning or repair. A, if a well fails and an emergency replacement well is requested, the failed well shall be abandoned and properly decommissioned by a certified well driller. B, in this section, we're just retitling, so I will not read the entirety of the text. Abandonment and decommissioning procedures, subsections 1 and 2 are unchanged. C, well repair procedures, subsection 1, only certified well drillers are authorized to alter or repair a well. C2, for wells that have undergone repair, a sample shall be tested for total coliform bacteria and any other parameters deemed appropriate by the Board of Health prior to being returned to use. That's the end of section 15.
Thanks, Julie. Any comment from the board on any of these changes? Hearing none, any comment?
Yeah, I think that we've gone over it before, but I'll just point out this one about any other parameters deemed appropriate by the Board of Health is sometimes we've seen something show up in a water sample taken from a well that's then been tied back to a chemical, maybe a disinfectant or something else that's been used in the well. And since we can't predict all of the products that might be used during well drilling, that's what that catch-all phrase is there for.
Any questions from anyone about that? Not seeing any hands. Okay, should we move on?
Section 16, here we're amending the language in subsection A. So 16 is pipes and equipment, subsection A. All service pipes and connections shall be of non-toxic materials and meet the specifications to the current version of NSF ANSI 61-2021 drinking water system components health effects.
So this is just updating the reference because the old one was outdated.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't have time to raise my hand. This is just, I'm sure you know the answer, Daryl and Ellen, but is that automatically, is that sort of a given? The New England Water Works Association, is that just something that everybody refers to, or are there more than one sources?
So the New England Water Works is being deleted because that is no longer an active source. And so now we've cited the new appropriate source.
Oh, okay. So, but I mean, I assumed it was a standard reference, but I didn't know if there are many of these, or if we just have, if it's state by state, or just curious.
We're now citing a
would
National Standards Foundation.
So it's national.
Yes, I would say that it can vary depending on topic, but as Matt pointed out, this is a national
Yeah,
and well-recognized
yeah, I was
source.
just wondering, because I know we always use, appropriate references, but I was just curious if that's federal or state. Thank you.
Right, moving on to section 17. There are no further changes in 16. Here, we are amending the title of the section from to water quality specifications, deleting in quantity. Continuing down to 17.1. Here we're going to be amending the second sentence and adding language about disinfection and decontamination of a well. So 17.1, sanitary protection. Sanitary protection shall be incorporated into the construction of the well. All newly completed wells shall be disinfected and or decontaminated in accordance with the instructions from Mass DEP's current private well guidelines or suitably effective methods that are less toxic or less persistent. Disinfection and or decontamination shall be professionals. A report of disinfection procedures used shall be provided using the Board of Health's well disinfection and decontamination record form. Shall I keep going in section 17, Daryl, or do you want to talk about them piece by piece?
Matt, I'll leave it to you.
I think, actually, why don't we pause here? And then the next couple are about sampling and testing. So let's pause here, then we'll do the next two together.
Got it.
So any questions from the board about this one? This is similar to the last one in which we're updating the reference.
Yeah.
Right, and the current private well guidelines, we're tweaking with that or suitably effective methods that are less toxic or less persistent in case technologies or available treatments evolve and are not captured in the private well guidelines in as timely a fashion. So it's to give an opportunity for something new. For example, chlorine is extremely toxic, which is why it works at killing off bacteria and viruses, but it is toxic to us.
I have another question. I know I did bring this up in our original conversations prior to the board changing. And I was wondering if maybe, what would the board think about this? As you know, when we install the systems and when we build homes is when we require assessment of the water supply. Would it be appropriate to have something here for rental units at the turnover of a rental unit? Would that be an appropriate time for water testing to take place of the tap water in the rental units?
So I think 2 points. The first is that there's nothing about testing in the one we're discussing right now. The second is that this is not a moment in which we should be adding new things to this. We are merely publicly reading the current and answering any questions on the current proposed changes. It's not a time for us to add additional changes.
Well, so in the past, prior to when you were on the board, Matt, we did make an amendment that we thought was.
I understand, Rebecca, but we've discussed this every time we've done this, and we have all decided that we're not going to do it this time. And we're never going to get through these if we are constantly editing them. And I think also this particular comment has nothing about testing. So if there's a question about testing, we should do it on the next one, but there's nothing about testing in this section. So is there a question about the disinfection procedures?
No.
Okay. Any other questions about this section? All right, so let's move on to 17.2 and maybe do 17.2 and 17.3. Although 17.3 is long, but 17.2 is short. So let's do all these together.
Together. Okay, 17.2, here we're adding language in the first and last sentences of the section. 17.2, sampling quality. A minimum of 2 water samples shall be collected by a qualified professional and submitted to the state-approved laboratory for analysis, consistent with the requirements of the Board of Health. 1 sample shall be taken when the well installation is completed, and 1 shall be taken from the tap in the dwelling before occupancy. All results shall be submitted to the board for approval. Acceptance of water quality shall also be based on its conformance to the normal characteristics of groundwater in the area, as well as established state, federal, and Board of Health drinking water standards. 17.3, amending the language in subsections A, C, D, E, F, G, and adding in the new subsection of H. 17.3, laboratory tests, subsection A, a chemical, physical, and bacteriological analysis of water conducted by a Massachusetts certified laboratory using EPA-approved methods for drinking water analyses shall be required for private and semi-public water supplies. An initial non-compliant analysis result may be superseded by 2 subsequent and consecutive compliant results. Water that does not meet the accepted standards of agencies of the state or federal government or of the Board of Health for potable water supplies shall be grounds for rejection of the well. There are no changes in subsection B, so we skip down to C. Chemical and physical analysis, including testing for volatile organic compounds using EPA method 524.2 and updates, and PFAS using US EPA methods 533 or 537.1 and update, shall be required. Analysis shall be performed at least for pH, color, odor, iron, turbidity, manganese, ammonia, nitrogen, nitrite, nitrogen, nitrate, nitrogen, alkalinity, total hardness, sodium, chlorides, lead, arsenic, volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs, and per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, known as PFAS. Subsection D. Here, I'll just read the changes. I will not list off every single one. Concentrations shall not exceed the following. The changes are for the final board. Arsenic, 1/100th of a milligram per liter. Lead, 15,000th of a milligram per liter. For VOCs, it's the method detection limit. And for PFAS, we're using the Massachusetts maximum contaminant levels as promulgated and presented in 310 CMR 22.07G. There's no changes to the sodium content section there. E, other parameters shall be evaluated as required on a case-by-case basis by the Board of Health to establish the water's suitability as a private or semi-public water supply. F, water quality of semi-public water supplies shall comply with all requirements of Regulation 2. Additional requirements may be specified by the Board of Health as appropriate to the size and other characteristics of each semi-public water supply. Such requirements may include, but not be limited to, routine periodic sampling and laboratory testing with a frequency of no longer than every 5 years. With dissemination of results to all service connections and the board, and establishment of a formal financial and operational mechanism by the water supply owner or owners to enable ongoing sampling and laboratory analyses. G, if concentrations of volatile organic compounds or PFAS is confirmed above levels presented in subsection D above, or the sodium concentration is greater than 28 milligrams per liter, a document shall be attached to the deed and recorded in the South Middlesex Registry of Deeds, which identifies the chemicals, their concentrations, and their potential health effects. The whole house treatment system, a whole house treatment system for the removal of volatile organic compounds or PFAS shall be installed if their concentrations exceed the standards defined in subsection D. Subsection H is entirely new. Disinfection and or decontamination of the well is required following installation and development. Additional parameters shall be evaluated to identify whether the chemicals used in those procedures or their byproducts are present.
Thanks, Julie. That was well read. That's a lot. So I think we'll take comments here. I would emphasize again that I think we have been working nearly a year on these, and this is not the moment to introduce new additions. I think if we have questions about what's here or concerns about things, then that's what we can take right now. So Rebecca, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, and I think that at the time when we discussed it before, you outvoted me 4-1. But I still think as a Board of Health, we need to protect the drinking water and the interests of renters. We just changed the town regulations to include rental units. Those were not prior, they were not allowed except for a in-law apartment, which is a relative. And I think we need to find a time and a place to introduce this. And I think this is the perfect time to make an amendment that is simply a single statement that includes something or at the change of occupancy of a rental unit. That would be an appropriate amendment that wouldn't change very much, but it would introduce some precautions for the interest of the drinking water of a rental, a person renting an apartment. Yes, we understand it's private water supplies. The homeowners can take their own risks with their own drinking water. But if somebody's renting, how are we going to protect their public health? It's the same issue as the schools and the town offices where testing is required annually. Any other town would require with testing prior at the change of occupancy. And I think that it's not less important because it's private water supplies. It's more important because we don't have the DEP regulating the quality.
Arguing that it's important. I think the argument is that we have previously discussed this and previously voted on this, that this is not the moment to make additions. You're welcome to bring that up.
I would like to propose a vote.
That up at the next round. We will
now
finish this if every single time we have to have this same conversation.
I do think we should have a vote. I want to see if the new board
You'd like to make
agrees
to add
that
an
we
amendment
should
on
not-
rent. You may make a motion now to add a section to this on renters. However, we would not be able to vote on that now because it has not been publicly posted. And so therefore we couldn't consider that regulation now.
Well, how did it wasn't posted when Daryl proposed giving a square surface area for the notification requirement? That was done on the floor at the meeting.
That was related to a very specific topic that we were discussing, and it was noted that we had not identified a threshold in that regulation. It was not an entirely new concept.
But this
It
isn't
was
a new
not new.
concept.
This is completely
Standard.
different, Rebecca. Hold on a minute. Oh, a year ago, even a little more than a year ago, frankly, the summer of 2022, we all talked about working on regulations. We all signed up for different topics and sections that we're volunteering to work on. Everyone signed up for something, identified issues, and then signed up for which ones to work on. That was the time to develop what you're proposing. We're not saying it's not a good idea. We're saying that this is way too far into the process to do it. And as Matt just pointed out, we have not
absolutely
published anything at all
standard.
related to testing for renters.
I
So
can't
it is a
imagine.
completely new topic.
This is standard, Daryl. Every town.
No, it
every
is not
rent-
standard.
It is standard.
That is not,
Test the
Rebecca,
water.
that is the point. The point is, this is not the moment to do it. We've been talking about this for a year. This is not the moment to do it.
I don't agree,
It's
and
here
I think
now,
that
and
I think we should have a vote.
make a motion, and if anyone seconds it, then we'll have a vote.
Okay, I move that the Board of Health amend the laboratory testing requirements to, in addition to the completion of installation, to also require testing at the time of change of occupancy in a rental unit in Sherborn.
Okay, we have a motion. Does anyone second to make an amendment at this time?
Well, I got a question.
Okay.
If
Go
I
ahead.
may.
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of the process, so when is it that, I understand we're reviewing what's already been proposed and presented at a public hearing. When is the time to do other amendments?
Once we have gone through these amendments and voted them up or down, we can at any time revise them. You could then make a proposal to add this once we've sort of gone through this process. Once that's done, we would have to publish the proposed change in the paper with enough notice so that it could be reviewed. We would then have to have a public hearing like this in which we read aloud the proposed changes, and then we could vote on it.
Okay, because there's been a couple of things. Okay. Okay.
But these could also be published after we amend it the same way, and it would be much
And
more
Would
efficient
have
to
to
do
go
it
back
tonight.
over, read them all again. Just to be clear, we would then have to have another public hearing in which we went through and reviewed everything. And we can't vote on them piecemeal, because if we vote on them piecemeal, then we have to like publish the piecemeal that are done in order to enact them. And so we're in this place, I fear we're going to run in this cycle where we never make any changes, because we're constantly making changes and having to restart the cycle of publishing, waiting, reading, voting.
Okay, but that's the same argument you used at the time we discussed it. I think this is classic public health. The Board of Health has to look out for the interests of every resident of the town, whether you're an owner or a renter. And it's irresponsible to leave this out of our regulations. We're writing the regulations for the first time right now. Now's the time to write good regulations.
No, now is not the time to write regulations. The time was a year ago when we were writing the regulations. We are never going to get this done. We have a motion. Do we have a second? I cannot have this conversation again. I'm sorry, guys, but like, it's been a year we've been trying to do this and we're moving nowhere.
Yes, Rebecca, you need to study what the process is. We can only make changes that are minor adjustments. They have to be in line with what we're talking about for changes. They can't be introducing.
Why is that
what you're talking about is a very complicated and new topic about a special testing under special ownership circumstances. It cannot be done this quickly, and it wouldn't be proper to not have vetted it as we did for all of these, where we had these discussions for every meeting that we had, that we talked about this. People were aware of it. They made comments about what we were proposing to do. We wove that into our thinking about it. We made adjustments in response sometimes to comments from the public. So what you're proposing to do right now would not be fairly vetted.
It's very simple. And
if you would like to draft something, if you would like to draft something and bring it to the board.
Add this amendment right now.
I just mowed the amendment. I just proposed an amendment, adds 4 words to that sentence. That's not complicated. It's a simple concept. It's every town, every apartment. You have to do testing. You have to make sure the water is safe for every resident. It's not fair. I mean,
Rebecca, we're not talking about abusing residents. We are talking about a process for developing regulations.
That's correct. And we're the Board of Health, and we have the jurisdiction to look out for the renters. It's the town meeting just authorized rental units. We're writing the very first regulations.
Rental units.
We should include this in the regulation. It's not that complicated. I don't know why you're saying it is. It's not. You know it isn't. You guys are very intelligent. You know this is not complicated.
And I would think that you would understand the process, which we have explained to you multiple times before. We have a motion.
But I propose, listen, all that does is drag it out for months and have it more on the agenda, and you're going to say we're too busy and we can't do it at that meeting, and then we drag it out and drag it out. I don't know why you wouldn't.
We spent 20 minutes having the same conversation. So why don't we just move on to finish, and you can vote this down if you don't like the changes. So right now there is a motion to add an amendment to rental protection.
You know I'm not going to do that, and it's totally appropriate. I just don't understand why you don't think this is appropriate and why you think it's too complicated.
I think it does not follow the process, which I have explained to you 20 times now.
It does follow the process. We have a precedent of doing significant changes on the floor, and this is a minor change that I proposed at the meeting. So I'm just proposing it again. I think it's appropriate. We're the Board of Health.
On this point,
Rebecca, every meeting we have that we don't approve these and enact them are loopholes that we know exist and protections that we fail to keep. And so every time that we continue this process, and it's been going on since, it started in June of 2022, and it's been going on here since May, we are missing opportunities for the protections that we have worked hard on. And the enemy of the good is perfection, or however that goes. We have really good improvements to our regulations. I did not develop these. I can see how these would be very useful, and timely adoption of these regulations will make a difference for the health of our residents. And so I would encourage that we need to continue with this process, adopt the regulations that we're proposing, and then go from there. We will never be done. It is a never-ending cycle of improvement, but we really need to move forward with this because I really am concerned about what's going to get missed because we've taken too long.
Well, I do, if
And
we
you-
did an amendment and we published it, we would still meet the regulations, and this has to be published at the end of this meeting. So
No,
why
it does
can't we-
not. We
Already
have,
been
Rebecca,
published.
we have updated these regulations several times since you've been on the board. So you know that it's a continuing process, just as Julie just mentioned. You have
Okay, well,
never
I request
submitted
to be on the
anything in
agenda for
writing.
this at the next meeting. For this
You-
amendment, for the
I'm happy to
future.
put the
Make it-
amendment on the agenda after we pass these amendments.
Right,
Because we pass these, we need to pass these changes to the regulations before we consider any new ones. So I'm happy to have that considered on a future agenda once we have finished voting on these.
that sounds great. Thanks.
Great.
Section 17.4. Here we're amending. Oh, I'm
it's about-
sorry. Sorry, Matt. I
do
was
we have-
I'm so frustrated at how long this process has taken. Are there any other questions about the changes to 17.3? Hearing none, let's move on. Okay, 17.4.
17.4, amending the language in the final sentence of this section. We're on page 13. Oh, we found it, good. 17.4, water conditioning. Permanent disinfection of a polluted supply shall be prohibited. If the natural water quality does not meet the physical and chemical criteria is listed in section 17.3, water conditioning shall be required. Water softener and other treatment backwash shall not be discharged into the septic system. Treatment units shall be installed with the capability of bypassing such units during a repair event or other special action, or if the raw water no longer requires treatment.
All right, any questions about this?
Really
Really-
just a clarification of what does if necessary or required mean.
Okay, 18. Here we're amending the language in subsection B, orders, service, and content. So skipping down to B. Orders, service, and content. The Board of Health has the authority to investigate suspected or known violations of these regulations and may take actions as it deems appropriate for the protection of public health, safety, welfare, or the environment, and to enforce any of the provisions of this regulation. Again, it continues. If any investigation reveals a violation of these regulations, the board may order the well owner to comply with the violated provision or provisions and or take other action. Continuing under B, subsection 3, there's no change in 2. The Board of Health may require a restriction to be recorded in the South Middlesex Registry of Deeds in cases that, in the opinion of the Board of Health, the water analyses show marginal compliance with the criteria of these regulations. And this is the conclusion of Regulation 2.
All right, any questions on any of those? It basically is just codifying our ability to actually enforce the regulations.
Final
Right.
Regulation 3.
Regulate,
If this
unbelievable,
is a video game, the music would be getting faster.
would be.
I don't know if that can be faster. Okay. Here, Regulation 3, public and environmental health review regulations and standards for other than a single family dwelling on a single lot. We are amending the title of this regulation to read Public and Environmental Health Review Regulations and Standards for Selected Site Development Activities or Other Special Conditions, or for other than a single family dwelling on a single lot.
Point here is just that the previous title didn't capture everything that was covered under 3. And so we're trying to make sure that the title actually reflects what's going on so that it's not sort of used as a way to make it unclear what applies where.
Yeah. Okay, moving down to 3.1. Here we're clarifying, amending, and reformatting the activities requiring an EHIR in the first 2 paragraphs of the subsection. 3.1, Environmental Health Impact Report, or EHIR. Any of the following activities requires submittal of a complete EHIR to the Board of Health. A, an application to construct 10 or more dwelling units served by an existing or proposed private way or by a common driveway, right-of-way, or traveled way. B, an application for approval of a subdivision plan. C, an application for approval of an open space residential subdivision under the Town of Sherborn zoning bylaws, section 4.5. D, an application to construct a commercial or industrial building with a gross floor area exceeding 7,500 square feet. E, an application for all or part of a project with design sewage flow of 2,000 gallons per day or greater. F, an application for approval of a planned unit development or a PUD special permit as set forth in the Town of Sherborn zoning bylaws, section 4.6. G, an application for approval of a comprehensive permit under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40B, section 20 through 23, and or H, any plans that involve removal of sod, loam, clay, sand, gravel, stone, whether quarried or not, or other natural material from the premises of a project or, property or project exceeding a volume of 350 cubic yards in total. The EHIR report shall not be accepted for review by the Board of Health unless such reports meet the criteria required by this and all other applicable Board of Health regulations that provides specific information relative to the operation of the proposed sewage treatment and disposal systems, including soil conditions, surface drainage calculations, hydrogeological descriptions of groundwater resources and movement, effects of precipitation, and wastewater treatment methodology. None of the activities listed in this section 3.1 may commence until the Board of Health has completed its review of the EHIR and, if required by the section, an environmental health permit has been issued. And that's the completion of the changes to 3.1.
Thanks, Julie. Also a lot on that one. I think the key point here is that much of the language is the same. It's been reformatted to make it clear that any of the conditions apply, which was always the intent of the board. But I think there had been question about the way it was written. And so I think really just clarification that anything in any of these bullet points will require an EHIR.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Sorry, is there somebody who's looking for public comment?
I have been looking for hands being raised.
Oh, you have? Okay. I just realized I can't really see anything, so I just want to make sure someone's looking for it. Okay.
When I ask, I've been scrolling through the people to see if there are people coming off mute.
Thanks, sorry, I just attended to that now.
Don't worry.
Okay. Oh,
You have your hands. Oh, Diana raised her hand. There
that's
we go.
okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Diana. There's
Couldn't
Diana.
find it. I didn't want to clap when I wanted to raise my hand. Well, where is it? Okay, could you scroll a little bit further up? I had a question about the, oh, no. Just right above the three, there we go. Section 8. So any plants that involve removal, the removal from the property, or is that just referring to digging up that amount of sod, clay?
That's a great question. It's actually removal from the property.
Okay.
So digging up and relocating doesn't necessarily require it.
Okay.
The little concern here was something that would sort of strip the topsoil in such a way that would affect sort of the movement of groundwater and things like that. So it really is removing from the property.
I think from the premises.
Yes.
Helps with that, but that's a good relevant question, Diana. I had to read that multiple times to make sure I understood it too.
All right.
Shall we move on to 3.2?
I think so.
All right, and I'll just note that Tom Curran, food inspector, has just joined the meeting, and he does have information to share with us on the heritage.
Let's see if we can keep going a little bit further, maybe.
Mhm.
If that's okay, Tom, and then we'll stop maybe a little before 7:30 to get your or like 7:20ish to get your update, just so we can hopefully make a little more progress on this.
Problem.
Okay,
Thanks.
it's getting faster. I can do this. Okay. 3.2, here we're gonna have administrative change, removing capitalization of permit name. This is a small administrative change. Environmental health permit. The applicant for any project that meets the criteria stated above shall be required to obtain an environmental health permit from the Board of Health. We just took out all caps. Moving on to, I don't think that's a discussion point. Okay, moving on to 5.0, section 5. Here we're adding subsection numbers to the existing definitions and adding a new definition, a singular definition. So for definition of person is 5.1, definition of board is 5.2, 5.3 definition of project is new. In determining whether a project is subject to EHIR, semi-public water supply categorization, and or other requirements of Regulation 3, the Board of Health shall consider the entirety of the project, including but not limited to any likely future expansion, and not separate segments thereof. Including criteria are considered when determining whether the various work or activities constitute one project, including but not limited to whether the work or activities taken together comprise a common plan, regardless of whether there is more than one proponent or lot, any time interval between the work or activities, and whether the environmental health impacts caused by the work or activities are separable or cumulative. Phasing or other forms of project segmentation shall not evade, defer, or curtail application of Board of Health regulations pertaining to larger projects. That's
So
the
this is a key point that had been missing from our regulation and was modeled on other state regulations, other town regulations, to basically make clearer what constitutes a project, and that sort of separation in time does not necessarily break things into separate projects, so that we ensure we're really considering things in their entirety when thinking about the need for an EHIR.
Yes, I agree with that. And MIPA, at the state level, has this kind of criteria.
Any questions from the board or the public on this?
My only comment is that MIPA has DEP regulating the drinking water and requiring testing where appropriate. And we have private water supplies in Sherborn. And as you can see from recent examples, individuals have in the last 5 years had to take legal action, spend significant of their own money, and some were not able to afford it or chose not to, and therefore had their own public health endangered by construction activities that maybe wouldn't have happened in a town that had a public water supply, or at least DEP regulated water supplies. So I think that it's a little bit dangerous to the residents of the town to follow such specific criteria, when I think we should just be a little bit more cautious and actually require environmental health impact reporting for every project that's greater than one home on a lot, the same way we used to previously for individual homes.
Is there something here that makes you concerned that we have made this more liberal? I think what we've done here is try to be more inclusive of what counts for an EHIR.
We had nothing before, so we can't compare it to anything. And it's obviously, it's all new, so.
Okay. Sounds good. Any further comment?
I guess it sounds like you consider it a step in the right direction, which is what we're hoping.
All right.
one foot in front of the other, Daryl, right?
Yeah.
Okay, section 7, entitled water supply. Here we're removing the word domestic from the first sentence and adding a second paragraph. I'll just read the first sentence in the interest of time, since the rest is not changed and it's a tiny change. 7.0 water supply. The proposed source of water supply shall provide water of a quantity and quality in accordance with town, state, and federal water supply standards for use. Ellen, is it okay if I don't finish that paragraph? Since nothing else has changed
Yes.
there.
Yes, there's no other change.
Just wanted to make sure it's okay. Okay, but next paragraph is added, new. For semi-public water supplies, sufficient provisions shall exist to ensure future ownership and or control over the protective area for each well as established per Regulation 2, Section 6.0 G, and associated land uses therein shall be limited to those directly related to the provision of water or shall have no significant adverse impact on the availability or quality of water for drinking, human contact, cleaning, water using infrastructure, agriculture, and other uses. The board may require additional protective measures that are determined to be suitable, customary, appropriate, or reasonable in serving or maintaining the interests of water quantity or quality. That is the end of section 7.
And so I think the main point there is that as we're more carefully defining semi-public water supplies here as being sort of anything between a private and a public, we wanted to ensure that there are protections in place for those. Any questions or comments from anyone on this?
I don't see hands.
Okay.
Oh no. Hang on, I'm sorry, I got rid of you. Let me get you back. Okay. Section 8, sewage disposal, changing the word lots to units and adjusting the minimum wastewater flow from 4,400 gallons per day to 2,000 gallons per day in the second sentence of subsection 2. So skipping down to subsection 2 under sewage disposal. Wastewater disposal shall meet the strictest minimum standards of current Commonwealth of Massachusetts or federal regulations of surface or groundwaters. For any subdivision having 10 or more dwelling units, or any project having a minimum design wastewater flow of 2,000 gallons per day, a hydrogeological evaluation shall be performed by a qualified engineer or geologist at the expense of the applicant, to be reviewed by the Board of Health for this determination. Hydrogeological evaluation shall include determination of geologic stratigraphy, sorry, my tongue's getting tied, determination of groundwater flow directions, determination of maximum groundwater elevation, determination of minimum groundwater elevation when relevant, evaluation of water table mounding, and prediction of down gradient water quality impacts. Maximum groundwater elevation shall be determined by the board and as adjusted by the method described in U.S. Geological Survey Water Resources Investigations, Open File Report 80-1205, probably high groundwater levels in Massachusetts, or subsequent revisions thereof. That's the end of subsection 8.
Thanks. And so I think, again, here the point was to just tighten up the requirements to make it clear that a multiple units on a single lot, really it's the number of dwelling units, and then to tighten up the limit for when we require these sort of
This is Ellen. I just had a question. Is that report 80-1205, should that be probable high groundwater levels in Massachusetts rather than probably? I think that's a typo.
Yeah, I was wondering that as well.
Right.
I would think probable makes
I
more
believe-
sense.
Yes, I think I will check, but that being an extremely minor change and an obvious typo, I don't think it's a problem to change it.
Yes, and it looks like it was pre-existing too. 'Cause
Oh,
it's
really?
not an edit that
Oh,
we
that's
made.
right.
so-
It is. I just looked it up. It is probable.
Okay.
Okay, so,
We'll correct that type.
yes.
Okay.
And I'll note that the change to 2,000 gallons is a number that Mass DEP uses as a threshold for different requirements regarding sewage disposal systems. So it's aligned better with Mass DEP, Title V, and other.
Okay. I'm not seeing it in your hands. We'll go on to 9.
Okay.
Okay, section 9, special industrial and commercial requirements. Here we're removing the words projects for from the first sentence. 9.0, special industrial and commercial requirements. These regulations shall apply to any and all industrial or commercial projects or for any other project except for the construction of a single and 2 family dwellings. These regulations shall also apply to industrial or commercial operations conducted on residential dwelling property of any size, and also to any hobbyist operation that utilizes materials on the Massachusetts substance list. That's the end of subsection 9 changes.
I think pretty minor there.
Okay, I would say that the next one is, oh, no, never mind.
Do you think I should, do you think we have?
I think we
so close.
finish because I think most of the remaining changes are relatively minor.
Well,
I think we need to try
okay, okay.
the vote, but I think we need to try.
Okay. 10. Here, bedrock of disruption, adding the phrase or as part of a project to subsection A. So under subsection 10, A, a permit shall be required prior to any bedrock disruption activities in excess of 10 cubic yards being conducted on a property or as part of a project. A permit application form must be completed and submitted to the board. That's the end of changes to 10.
So I think the goal here is just to be more inclusive and ensure that if there is a lot of disruption taking place on something that may be on multiple properties that are a single project, that it gets reviewed here. Question?
I don't see any hands, Matt.
Okay.
Okay. 13. 13.1, submittal requirements. Plans for any proposed earth removal operation exceeding 350 cubic yards of material per project shall be filed with the Board of Health and shall contain the following information and meet the following criteria, but none of those criteria have been changed.
So here, I think, again, just the goal is to make this more restrictive and not just have it be a per lot, but apply that same 350 cubic yard removal threshold to any project. Any questions on this?
I don't see any hands here.
Okay.
Section 14, environmental health impact report, scope and general submittal requirements. Here is a minor grammatical correction to subsection 3. I will skip down to 3. A topographical map of the property with contours referring to mean sea level, showing the location and elevation of all test holes, how the surface drainage is to be handled, including nearby affected areas, and all pertinent physical features, including ponds, swamps, wetlands, seasonal water courses, swales, areas of ledge and rock. Also, wherever applicable, and I think this is supposed to be overlay. I think it says overlay.
Yeah.
Do you see that, Ellen?
Ellen, do you see the other typo there?
Okay. Of floodplain drainage watershed areas, USDA soil map characterization for soil type and hydrogeological group, USDA soil limitations for septic tank sewage disposal and aquifer designation. There are no further changes in this section. And that is the conclusion of all of our proposed regulation changes.
Right. Thank you, Julie. And I think thank you for your comments earlier that this is not perfect and there will be more changes ongoing. But I do think it's important to close some loop while we can. I think given the time and the fact that we have an appointment in 10 minutes and some discussion before then, I think it's unlikely that we can vote on these here because we are going to have to go back through and vote up or down on each one. Correct, Ellen?
Yes.
Okay, so I would propose we continue the hearing. And then the plan for the next time will be to just go through and vote yes or no on each of these. My hope is that we've had the discussion and it'll give a chance the board to sort of reflect on the changes and make up their minds as to whether they think the changes are good or not. And we can just move through and vote yes or no on each one. So I think we should continue the hearing. The question is until when? I think getting back to it tonight is unlikely, so we probably should put it for another meeting. Does that sound reasonable to people?
Yeah.
Yes.
The next meeting is October 18th. And I will be away from the day after the meeting until the day before the November 1st meeting. So if you vote at the next, on October 18th, it's not going to make any difference because the minutes won't be done and nothing will go in the paper. So.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Ellen. I'm
No,
not going to be here. I was going to not attend the 18th meeting. It is my son's birthday, and that's pretty important to me.
All right.
So how about the first meeting in November?
Yeah, I'm on call that night. Hopefully we'll get lucky. But I think we should plan on it then. Do we have anything on that agenda yet?
I do think there is a couple variance hearings on November 1st. Yes.
We
How
need
would,
to have a special meeting, Matt. If
Yeah,
what we need to do is vote up and down.
yeah, I wonder if we should have a special meeting. Just for this, although it sounds like it would have to be before the next meeting on the 18th.
I wouldn't mind that while it's fresh in our mind.
Yeah,
Fresher.
yeah, that makes sense.
Couldn't vote tonight?
What's that?
You could vote tonight.
We could. Tell you what, let's do this for now. Let's continue this till, just so we can start moving on some things. Let's continue this until, let's say, 8:10. That'll be after our variance hearing, and we can decide then if we want to try to vote tonight, depending on sort of how we're moving through other business. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, I like that.
Okay. Do I need to vote on that, Ellen?
No. No.
Okay. Let's continue the hearing until 8:10, and then we'll consider voting at that point in time. All right. So with that,
Okay, great. Oh, you know what? I have not downloaded the inspection forms. So why don't you start talking? Tom,
okay.
perhaps, and
Thank
I
you.
will.
Daryl tries to pull this. I just got them on my email too, so I don't have them either. So, if you can try to pull them up, Daryl, Tom, you can give us an overview, and then.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I conducted a follow-up visit at Heritage tonight.
Tom,
hello?
hold on one second. I think I'm trying to say something.
Yeah, could I just mention that the latest tonight's inspection report is in Google Docs.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
I did upload it tonight, but not the pictures just received.
Okay, go ahead, Tom. I'll try to get the inspection pulled up.
Sure. So I met with Josh tonight. I did a follow-up visit. Many of the issues were addressed. I think that the solutions that he made to address the moisture in and around the walk-in refrigeration units has been effective. There was a clogged condensation drain that he found behind a wall between the walk-in freezer and the walk-in cooler, and he unclogged it and replumbed the line into the drain. And then on the other side, he had sent pictures previously of a mechanism that has to do with the draft system, I believe, that was leaking condensation. So he addressed that. He did send some pictures. He did remove the compromised wall material on the advice of the hygienist's report around the dry storage area adjacent to the walk-in freezer, and then in the dry storage area across from the walk-in cooler. So he submitted pictures. I just forwarded them a few moments ago of what he removed. It was probably about 3 feet of wall materials up from the floor level. and the insulation behind that. And then he said that he bleached and cleaned inside the wall cavities, replaced the insulation, put new wallboard up. So what remains is the wallboard that he did put up still needs a coat of plaster on it. It still needs to be sealed with paint to render it cleanable and non-porous. He still has to affix updated hood tags on his exhaust hoods upstairs in the kitchen. And there's still some debris in the basement that need to be removed as a result of the materials that he removed from the wall, and then just some miscellaneous items accumulating. He's kind of been piecemealing, getting rid of the debris and things in the basement that are no longer used to the business. But that crate is still down there with all the debris down in the basement. So I've asked him to try to expedite getting rid of all the materials down there that have no use for the business.
Are any of those materials at risk of, if they remain on site, recontaminating anything? Are they this potential source of mold or anything else?
They're in an opposite end of the basement. I'm sure if they're hanging around in there, it's probably not a good thing. So we probably want to get those out of there as soon as we can. This consists of, I think, some wallboard material and there was a pipe that he had replaced with some plumbing. It's like a piece of cast iron pipe. And I submitted a picture previously of that crate box, if you will, with the debris in it. In my previous inspection, that's still there, so he needs to get rid of that, and all that miscellaneous debris and matter. He needs to throw that away.
Overall, you feel like we're making progress?
I feel like we're going in the right direction, slowly but surely. He did do a lot of work, but again, he needs to button some things up. I'm gonna certainly follow up with him and stay on the case until we feel everything's been completed up to code. I did I scanned the building inspector in on this inspection report. I'm not sure if he's been out there recently or not, or if he had any take on the repairs that were made, if he needs permits for that or not. But I think it's superficial and wall materials, I don't suspect he does, but I always like to include the building inspector with anything structural.
All right. I mean, I continue to be frustrated that it's like always something else.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. It feels like the major things are getting done, and it's smaller things as we go along. I think we just have to keep going back. Unfortunately, I appreciate all your really hard work on this. Oh,
thank you. Yeah. Yes, we'll stay on them, and I'll continue to work with the owners there to make sure that we get the business up to code and it meets our expectations, the expectations of the board.
Are these materials that require special disposal, and that's why they're not being taken away with the regular trash, just to get them off site?
He did mention that he would have to recycle. He was going to take the metal material to the landfill to recycle it, but then the other debris can probably be put into the regular waste stream through his on-site dumpster. I think what he's doing is kind of piecemealing it into his regular trash, rather than get a roll off or something like that. Perhaps for economic reasons, I don't know. But I'd like to see all that stuff taken out of there as soon as possible, and I conveyed that to Josh.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so currently there are 10 days to resolve these items, or that was from before, sorry.
From today's.
Okay.
Yeah, I put 10 days on there, but I'll follow up again with an email as well to make sure that we're clear. That we need to kind of expedite these issues since this has been dragged out for a while. So we need to get these things completed.
All right, and I think we'll plan to talk to you again next meeting.
Fair enough.
But again, thank you for staying on it, and I'm hopeful that like I said, I'm hopeful the major things are addressed, and hopefully this other stuff gets tidied up by next time.
Great, thank you,
Let's
Tom.
hope so. Thank you. Support, I
Should I-
appreciate it.
Any other
Should I,
questions?
should I invite Josh to the next meeting? Or just leave it for Tom to attend and report?
I think it's fine if Tom reports. Tom, if you have concerns prior to then, let us know, and then we can have him come.
Okay.
Sounds good, will do.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, it's now 7:31, and so we are due for our variance hearing for 81 Brush Hill Road. Ellen, do we have the green cards? You're muted, Ellen. I don't know if you answered me.
Sorry about that. Yes, we have received everything for that.
All right, great. Okay, and so we can open the hearing. I believe I saw Eric here.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, do you want to walk us through what's going on?
Sure. Can I share my screen, or do you want to?
You're welcome to. I know we have a number of plans. It might be easier if you do, so I'm happy to
Okay.
share.
Where do we do that now? I'm not seeing that.
But it might not let you.
There we go. I found it. Thank you.
You got it?
I do. Share. There we go. Sorry about that. So what we have here is we have 81 Brush Hill Road. This is located at the corner of Corsebrook Road and Brush Hill. It's about 600 or 700 feet from Western Avenue if you take a right onto Brush Hill Road. It's a 3-bedroom single family home. The homeowner who I saw on there, Rory, they live the next house down on Corsebrook Road, and this house was kind of run down and decrepit, so there was an opportunity for them, and they purchased it. They fixed it up. With that purchase came a failing septic system. It has something you see every so often, but it's not that common. There's on the right side of the house, or on what would be the west, there's a well, existing well. Then there's the cesspool, not more than 20 feet away, which is not a good thing. So they contacted me. I did some soil testing out here on this side. I tried to stay. It's a neighborhood, so there's all kinds of well buffers. There's a well buffer here, so the constraints are pretty much the buffers from people's wells. But I tested in this area. I thought it was the best spot. The soils were not great. Probably why they never replaced it. It has we had groundwater coming in the test hole. I had to send the soil out to a lab. The highest redox we noticed was 18 inches below grade. So it came back as a pretty poor soil. I think it was a 30-minute per inch soil, which is makes it a larger system. I could only get that 82.8 feet away from the well. They did not want to move the well at this time. By putting the well up here, they might create a situation at their home where they're within a well buffer. Like I said, it's difficult in these neighborhoods. They're really running out of space once the system fails. So I decided to design a fast geoflow system like the last meeting I had. This is it's an IA system. It has enhanced nitrogen reduction. And it really appeals to the homeowner because it's a very limited mound. You still have a passive usable yard, versus if I had designed a pipe and stone type system, this whole area might be pretty mounded and look really bad and be unusable. as before, with this type of system, there are several variances to both the local and the state regulations. I could go through those now if you'd like.
Sorry, I was muted. I think first, let's see if there's any questions.
Okay.
About the proposed plans. I think as usual, we prefer to see, obviously, appropriate distances kept all the abutting wells, which it looks like you have done here, and then you're just constrained with the on-site well.
Correct.
Questions?
Mark, I'm curious if you have any particular comments on this one.
Well, just so the board knows, the soil testing did not, as it relates to the in-lab testing, it revealed a 0.15 gallons per day, which is a 60-minute per inch rate. So the soil was not the greatest in respect to the design. That's why Eric's chosen to use an innovative alternative technology here, and pretty much find a spot for the system that would be the best location. I'm not for sure if he could get a better well distance from the proposed SAS, because as you can see on the plan, there's another well radius that goes around. So it was difficult, I believe, and Eric, you can state this, to find a better location for the septic system. There may have been something on the northwest side, but Eric, if you want to explain why you didn't choose that area on the northwest side.
I believe it's not within a 200-foot radius of the system, so it's not shown here, but that would be the homeowner's well is would be in the proximity of their well would be within their well radius. So and also it leaves room if their system fails in the future, they're not constrained by themselves, so they're not, you can still put a system up there.
Has there been consideration to relocate the existing well?
They haven't mentioned anything to me.
I mean, that would be another opportunity by where you're putting the soil absorption system, the leaching area, the west side. Let me make sure I get it all right. No, I'm sorry. That's the southwest side. Might be a possibility for a new well location if they ever get to the need for that. And that's all I would suggest, is that, we have reviewed why it's located here and not some other location on the property.
This one, Mark, though, was the 0.33. It's the next one that was the 0.15. Still bad.
Yeah, no, okay. I thought, 0.3. Yeah. So a 30-minute per inch rate
versus still not great.
Just so the board knows, it wasn't compacted. If it was compacted, then this wouldn't be possible. So that is testing in a lab. So fortunately, it wasn't compacted. So
all right. Other questions from the board?
I'm just curious, are those actually clay soils, which we don't usually encounter? Is it some other phenomenon that's making the perk rate be significantly higher than we usually see?
It's a fine sandy loam. It's
okay.
It's above it's not, they say that there's no clays, and the only clay in Massachusetts is down in the Cape. This is the closest to that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really poor soil.
Do we have any abutters here with any questions? Not seeing any hands raised. All right, why don't we take a look at the variances? I'm happy to share those if you want, or either way.
Okay. Let me see, stop share.
Matt, just so you know, the homeowners are here if they have any questions.
Okay. There, now I see you. Any questions from either of you?
Truth, no. I think we're at a stage right now where we're amenable to this. Ideally, I was hoping, what we didn't understand was a neighbor of ours had a French drain going into our property that we purchased, and therefore the front yard looked like it had a lot of water all the time. And we didn't find the drain until after Mark and Eric did the perk test, but the front yard now is perfectly dry, and it seemed like the most ideal spot for the leaching field, but wells obviously are an issue. It's not an issue with us regarding our house well, but it was across the street, I think, that was our real issue. But I don't even want to get into this right now. It was just we're here to go with this.
Yeah, we don't have any questions. We're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so here, this was, you mean the front yard here, and yeah, there's a
Yeah.
well back there with that you've got to meet. Sorry, that's so tiny. I don't know why that's so tiny, but yeah, that well setback you had to meet there. So you're pretty
Okay.
constrained. You can go.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so. Am I on the right one here? Did I jump on the right one? No, I did not. That looks right. Okay. All right. Do you want to let us know what the variance, walk us through the variances, Eric?
Sure. This is from the Sherborn Rules and Regulations, section 1.2, to allow the use of a bed design in order to provide 100% of the required SAS soil absorption system. The microfast treatment with geoflow drip, which are beds by design. They're always beds, they can never be trenches. Provide advanced treatment, which improves effluent quality. So I'm asking to use a bed versus trenches. Section 5.1D, to allow the SAS soil absorption system to be designed on the basis of a sieve analysis versus 2 percolation tests due to groundwater intrusion. The most restrictive long-term acceptance rate, the LTAR, of 0.33 was used for the design. Section 8.01, to allow the bottom of the SAS to be installed 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater versus 5 feet, to limit the site disturbances with the use of the geoflow drip system. The FAST system's advanced treatment compensates for this variance. Section 8.02, to allow the SAS to be in an area with 1.5 feet of natural grade above high groundwater versus an area where groundwater is at least 5 feet below grade. All the areas tested yielded groundwater less than 5 feet below grade. To allow the leaching area to be located 84.2 feet. I think that should be 82.8 feet. It was a typo. From the on-site downhill well versus the 175 feet required, another typo due to the site constraints. Section 10.2, to allow the SAS to be located 11 feet versus 20 feet from the required property line due to limited area outside the well buffer. You try to balance the neighbor's well and our own well. These are the Title 5 variances, local upgrade approval. Section 15.405(1)(I). It's to allow a sieve analysis to be performed in accordance with the department guidance if a percolation test cannot be performed as determined by the approving authority. There was water coming in the test pit. Section 15.405(1)(J), to allow a reduction in the requirement of 12 inches separation between the inlet and outlet tees to high groundwater, provided that all boots or pipe joints are sealed with hydraulic cement or installed with watertight sleeves, and the tank is proven watertight. There's a note on the plan for the selected contractor to make sure all the openings are grouted and sealed and watertight. Section 15.405 1G, to allow the proposed soil absorption system to be located 82.8 feet from the on-site well versus 100 feet to protect the down gradient neighbor's well. So there's the 82.8. I got it right there. That's it.
Okay. Any questions from the board on any of these? I mean, this all makes sense given the constraints of this the site. Mark, any comment on any of these?
No, based on the site constraints, these requests are within reason of what they need to do to get a better system on site than what they have presently.
Yeah, which is a great point. There's a cesspool 20 feet from the well right now. This is a large improvement. Julie, did I see you about to say something?
No, I was just going to say, Eric, you did a really good job.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, so with that, I think we can go ahead and vote on these. So do I have a motion to approve a variance to section 1.2 to allow the use of a bed design?
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right. So next, do I have a motion to approve variance to section 5.1D to allow the use of a sieve analysis because of groundwater intrusion on the perk tests?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve a variance to section 8.0 subsection 1, which allows the SES to be 2 feet above groundwater, which is allowed based on the use of the geoflow system?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, do I have a motion to approve a variance to section 8.0 subsection 2 to allow the SES in an area with 1.8 of natural grade above high groundwater because this is a natural condition?
Yes, and if I can just add to that, just to interject, the area that was tested yielded groundwater within the first 5 feet of material or below grade. So groundwater is within those first 5 feet. That's just to correct the statement.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
I have a motion to approve a variance to section 10.1 BC to allow the leaching area to be, we said it was 82.8 is the correct distance. Yeah, 82.8 feet from the on-site well versus the 175 required. Again, this is due to constraints of the site, and we always appreciate it being to the on-site rather than neighboring wells.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
We have a motion to approve variance to section 10.2, which reduces the property line setback due to site constraints.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, so moving on to the local upgrade approvals. Do I have a motion for a local upgrade approval for section 15.4051I, which again allows the sieve analysis?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the local upgrade for section 15.4051J, which allows the reduction between the T's and groundwater that will be designed to allow for that?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, and then finally, do I have a motion for a local upgrade approval for 15.4051G, which again is related to the distance from the on-site well?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, so with that, we can close the variance hearing. Mark, are the plans ready for approval?
Yes, they are conditional to two deed recordings, one on the prohibition of a garbage grinder, and the second one for the use of innovative alternative technology.
Great. Do I have a motion to approve the plans with those two conditions attached?
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sounds like a tough site, Eric.
Yes, I wanted to mention too that the part C on that on the letter, I know Daryl mentioned at the last meeting that should be taken off. I think I put out this letter before you'd mentioned that, so you know
That's fine.
If okay.
You know,
Yeah, that was my predecessor, yeah, so.
all right. Okay, so I think it's now 7:51, so it's time for the next variance hearing for 32 Saddlebrook, which Eric will also be helping us with. Ellen, do we have green cards for this one?
Yes, you do. It's all set.
Okay, then let's go ahead and open the hearing.
Okay.
Plans up here. Eric.
Yep, that's fine. This one is 32 Saddlebrook Drive. Saddlebrook is located off of Mill Street. It's near the intersection of Nason Hill Road. This is the last house on the cul-de-sac. It's a beautiful setting in the backyard. It's got a big lawn area. There's a wetland system here, but it's a pond. There's ducks out there. It's really nice. Although the septic system is failed, it's located on the off the back deck to the what would be the east of the back by the bay window there. That is it's in failure. So and the on-site well is off to the close to the cul-de-sac. It's probably 20-30 feet from the road, from the pavement. This system, I did the testing in the backyard. I tried to stay as far as I can away from that wetland system. I was able to achieve the 100 conservation offset distance, as well as the 125 from the Board of Health. I did 3 test pits. It appears like this whole backyard at one point, probably prior to the regulations, and it's all filled. So I'm assuming that at one time it was probably just a wetland in itself. So we had 5 feet of fill through here. We had redox right at the bottom of that fill line. I was not able to do a percolation test here either. The soil was also a fine sandy loam, or a silt loam. Sent it out to a lab, and this one came back as a 0.15. That's the worst rate. The worst rate that's allowed. So the system is very large. Again, I did the fast geoflow system. Removes nitrogen. It's starting to become an issue in the Cape. I don't know if you've heard about that. All the systems down there, they want enhanced nitrogen removal, and I think it's going to spread to the other parts of the state eventually. So to get ahead of it here, and it's like I said before, it benefits the homeowner. The system it's not really even mounted at all. Even with the high groundwater, he'll be able to have a backyard, maintain that look. Some slight off grading that's 3-to-1, but in the back side of it in the north. But other than that, it'll pretty much look like it does today. The only real variances with this one was it's a bed. It's a bed versus trenches. And then I'm sending the soil off to a lab for a sieve analysis and not being able to do a percolation test. We didn't have any constraints by the abutters. Well, the lots are fairly large. We're easily 125 feet away from from his own well, so it's, the only constraint really is just the wetland. Which I was able to stay out of the buffer zone, so.
Mark, any comments on this one? I don't know if Mark's still there, his video's up.
Sorry about that. I was actually on another screen looking at this plan. I enlarged it so I could explain that the soil testing that was completed, groundwater is 5 feet or lower. That's why that waiver is not being requested. And there's no way to know if that was originally maybe top of ground because they filled in the area with 5+ feet of fill. So with that said, I just wanted to point that out to the board, but below the fill, there is 5 feet or more of soil. And Eric even noted that even though, because we're getting so deep, we did, and I agree, the bucket that was going through had hit no refusal. So there's 5 feet of soil, no waiver needed on that. And there's groundwater, it's best that we could determine more than 5 feet below the existing grade. But again, that existing grade probably was raised years ago.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Did you mention at the last hearing that the perk rate for this one was 60?
The last hearing, I was mistakenly saying it was 0.15, which is a 60-minute per inch rate.
Oh,
That
okay.
one was a 30-minute per inch rate based on the in-lab testing.
No, I know that one was. So what's the perk rate here? Sorry,
60.
I'm not looking at a big enough plan for me to pull that out.
Yeah, I need to.
It's a 60.
It is 60.
Yeah.
So
You
do we
could do
need a
90.
variance for that or no?
I don't know, that's for only for new construction, right?
No, we
No, would there be a variance?
But again, I need to go to the other screen. Give me.
Okay.
You're right with you. I just was on the other screen. And what did you get for analysis on this, Eric? They're looking to see what they measured this one at 0.15.
Yeah.
So it was over 40 minutes per inch, which is our requirement. So this may need an additional waiver based on that, which I might catch when.
Good catch. Yeah, didn't realize that.
So based on that, how do we proceed here?
Well, we can vote on all of these.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
don't think it will affect the abutters, and I don't know if there's any abutters here, but it's a natural condition that can't change. So we don't allow for an additional waiver, but this is a natural condition. I'm not for sure if it could be considered and make sure, it would have no effect on the abutters. This is an improvement to the status of the present septic system. Again, it's an awkward one because I know the abutters need to know of all the waivers being requested, but this waiver does not affect the abutters.
I don't think I've ever requested that one.
I don't think you ever got over a 40-minute per inch.
No.
So I guess just as a matter of process, we can vote on these, but then
Yeah.
we really have to do it the right way for that one. So should we vote on these and then plan to have you come back? I mean, Ellen, we'll probably have to re-notify, right?
That's why I'm questioning if this could be,
Yeah.
because it's a natural condition.
Right, but
I understand. I do get it.
yeah. DEP doesn't like us to not have a public hearing when there's a variance.
Yeah.
And it's still a variance. I mean, we have it in our regs, so.
Yes, no, it is correct. So unfortunately, it will have to go through the process.
Okay. So why don't we vote on these? And then probably the thing we'll do is we'll vote on these and we won't approve the plan. And then have to come back with that variance and we'll approve the plan and the last variance on the plan at that time. Does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you should do.
Okay, so let's work through these just to make it shorter next time. And so I've got the variances up here. And so the first one is, so I guess can I have a motion for variance to section 1.2, which is what allows the use of a bed design?
So moved. Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right, and then can I have a motion to approve a variance to section 5.1D to allow for design on the basis of sieve analysis versus the percolation tests?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. Sorry, I didn't notice. Did we have any abutters here? I'm just
Ask, good point.
okay.
Are
Only
there any-
because if someone wants any of this explained, we're always happy to do that. But people have been pretty quiet tonight, so.
Um,
The homeowner is here.
Yes, Scott.
any questions from the homeowner or abutters? Okay. So can I have a motion for a local upgrade approval for section 15.4051I, which again is related to the sieve analysis?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, so I think we should probably close this hearing and then we'll have to have a new hearing for the other variants.
Okay,
And I think we won't consider the plans at this time. We'll consider them at that point.
okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
And Eric, I'll send you a letter tomorrow.
Okay,
Might be possible if you can get, you already have the abutter list. If you can
Yeah.
get the letter ready, I'll check. And if you can get the letter, a butter notification letter out tomorrow, I might
Yeah.
be able to make the November 1st meeting.
okay, I'll definitely do that.
But
Okay.
I'll have to check the time and everything. I'll send you the letter tomorrow. I'll try to do that early.
And
Okay.
Eric, give me a call. Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry I interrupted. If the homeowner wants to talk, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, I'll yield until then.
Thank you, Scott Barnard here. I appreciate it. I can definitely get the letters out tomorrow morning. Could you explain again what was the last variance that we missed? That what exactly we need to clear up on the next meeting for me, just so I understand?
Yeah, Eric, do you want me to explain it or do you want to explain
Yeah,
it?
in Sherborn, you can't have a percolation rate over 40 minutes per inch, or you have to request a variance for that. And I'll take care of this for you. I don't want you to worry about it.
Eric, what I would suggest too,
Yeah.
if I may, is just add the other waiver, even though we know groundwater was from the top of grade, but that grade is artificially inflated by the fill. I would still suggest if we're going to come back, you ask for 8.01 also.
Okay. Got it.
And just so the homeowner knows, I would be in support to recommend to the board approval of these waivers. Unfortunately, it would set a precedent if they weren't followed through at a public hearing. So it can hopefully be on the next agenda and things will move along because there's no abutters here. I don't think they would be concerned. These are both natural conditions that exist.
Right.
Or artificial conditions with the fill.
Yeah, I'll speak for myself and say I don't anticipate having any concerns. We just have to follow the appropriate process here.
I understand.
Thank you.
Right, it is a replacement system, so that's why the variance is possible.
All right, any other questions on that?
No,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we have 5 minutes before we said we'd go back to the hearing. So
Matt, can I let Eric know that 14
Yeah.
Forest Street, we discussed and reviewed it prior to you getting here, Eric, and it has been approved.
Oh, okay, great. Great, that's good. Was the homeowner on? Do you know?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay, all right. I think they're in California. Okay. Thank you.
That relates to my question, which was going to be, what did you all cover before I got here? I was also
Take
late.
care of you. Have a good night.
All of the agent's business and 1, 2, and 3 of the other business.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah.
Maybe I should come late more often. You guys were very effective. Let's see here. So is there anything we can do of the chair's business in 5 minutes? We have 2, 3, 4 under that, right?
Yes. How about the Brush Hill Homes?
Sure.
I'll have to do the mea culpa, and I just could not find the time to draft something. I tried, but that was thwarted. So we have record from prior to the current owner of that property. That testing was done and groundwater was found at less than 5 feet below the surface in the test pits that they had done. Whether there are other places on the property to test that might yield something different is something we don't know. So that would be one issue, because there's the potential to default to Title V, which would be either the 4 feet required rather than our 5. And there's also the option for the mounding for new construction, putting in a mounded septic system. And the board's issue with that in the past has been that the specification for the material used in a mound is a sewer gravel. And the reason they specify that is they want the water to definitely flow into the ground and not back up onto the surface. So it provides something that you can identify, installers can purchase, but it doesn't do very much for treatment because it's not a very dynamic thing. It's like little pebbles essentially. So it doesn't have the complexity of a naturally deposited soil that has more opportunity for adsorption and absorption and for biological activity. So you lose that with the mounded system. So we hired a consultant a number of years ago to look into alternatives of ways to improve a mounded system by amending it with something. And there is research going on that in various places. I've read that that's a concern in a number of regions and countries about how to improve these kinds of systems. They're looking at use of wood chips, but then how long do the wood chips last as an additional layer? So anyway, so those are some of the issues, and the standard concern of a larger size septic system on a relatively small property. But so if anyone, those are what I see as some of the issues.
I had a question that I was trying to make sense of. I think between Daryl or Mark might be able to help me. So for Brush Hill, 5 acres, counting it up, they have 28 beds. And so even with a nitrogen reducing system from DEP, they could do 5 beds per acre. And so that brings us to 25, and yet they're proposing 28. And so I'm trying to understand, is there something that allows them to get to that 28 that I just don't understand?
Yeah, and Julie, this has been discussed with an abutter as well, and we had the state get involved to answer the question. They have a different formula, and I think it's the acreage as well. So Claire Golden did respond to us, and she's from the Northeast Regional Department of Environmental Protection, and she provided the formula. I can look it up, but it's based on the entire acreage, and there's a few other things she noted in respect to, it's under section 310 CMR 15.27.2, I believe. I'm looking at her email right now, and I'm looking at the subheading. It's under 310 CMR 15.217.2 about the 550 gallons per acre. It's how they describe it, but basically, if you use nitrogen reduction, you can get the one additional bedroom per acre, and an acre in the definition of Title V is 40,000 square feet. And she did send a formula on it to show that they have the equivalent of 27 bedrooms based on the Title V acre and based on the present acreage out there. I think they have 5.445 acres of a traditional acre, and then you have to divide that into 40,000 square feet based on the total square feet of 5.445 acres. So I know it sounds complicated, but according to Claire Golden, she said they can get up to 27 bedrooms based on the present acreage with nitrogen reduction, to make that clear.
Okay, but Julie, you counted 28 bedrooms that they're proposing?
I counted 28. There's 4 units at 3 beds and another 4 units at 4 beds. That's 12 beds for the 3-bedroom homes, and that's 16 beds for the 4-bedroom homes. And I double checked that I wasn't losing my mind, and 12 plus 16 does equal 28. So
yes, it does. That will all get resolved because they have to meet Title V, and they may need to reduce a bedroom if they're not within the requirements, unless they're going to find additional acreage. I'm not for sure on that.
Right, and that was a similar issue for Coolidge.
And Daryl, I don't know if you were in the email, but since you're writing the letter, I'd be glad to forward it to you and the entire board if you wish.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good to see.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I forward it to the entire board, just don't talk amongst each other or respond, because it could end up having maybe I'll forward it to Daryl, and then when she has her response, we can discuss it then if everyone's okay with that. I'm not trying to hide anything.
I'm okay with it being information for everyone.
Okay, then you all see an email in a few seconds, because I'm on my phone on that email, so I'll be glad to send it.
Okay, put in the reminder for no discussion among the board.
You bet.
And remind me when this letter is due.
I think it's the 16th. I think it's before the next meeting.
Yes.
Oh, it is?
October 16th. Yeah.
Oh, dear. I thought it was after. I thought they got the extension, or was this already with the extension?
I think this is the extension.
Sorry.
That time is handy, right?
Subcommittee time? Someone want to be on a subcommittee with me if we get authorized by the board?
Daryl, for the other 40Bs that we've put in letters, we have a universal suite of concerns, right?
Right.
Is that what you're proposing? You're going to kind of build off of that with specific?
I looked to see what applies, and I started going through it, and not everything applies in the same way to each one. So, and some of it is background for illumination for the readers of what the situation is in Sherborn. That really does differ from the rest of Eastern Massachusetts for the most part. So
does someone want to Daryl on reviewing? Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
No, I was just going to ask, is our letter sent on directly, or does the ZBA kind of glean from it?
usually the select board will collect comments, and then they prepare an overview or summary, kind of compilation of points from the various boards, committees, and departments. And then they include all of the individual comment letters as an appendix to that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I'm always happy to review unless anyone else wants to. I have to Carol to draft it though, because she does a better job than anybody else.
I agree with that. Daryl does the best job. And if Matt,
Thank you very much for the vote of confidence. I'll try to maintain some standard on that.
we really just have like a week and some change. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I can get to it so I don't know when, as soon as I can. And I should have a little more time than I had recently.
Matt, you have way more experience on this board than I do. But if you are tight for time, which I suspect you might be, Daryl, if this is prior to the 14th, which is a magic day for me, then I could review it, but I'm not sure if I can give as much input as Matt could, but I'd be willing to put it out there. So Matt, I won't be offended if you say no, thank you.
Happy to hear you because your experience will be equal to mine after reviewing one or two of these. So I think go for it. And if for whatever reason it's later in this last weekend and you can't do it, just let me know. But I think I'm happy to hand it over.
Okay.
All right, so that'll motivate me to do this sooner than later. How about that?
And I did send that email out to everyone. Hopefully you all received my email on the information I was just disclosing at the meeting. And you can make this email as part of a public record since I brought it up at this meeting, if you so wish, Ellen.
All right.
Okay, so we need a vote, though, to authorize Julie and I to prepare the final version.
So do I have a motion to authorize Daryl and Julie to prepare the final version of comment on the Brush Hill Homes 40B?
So moved.
I'll second it. And then I'll vote for it. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, sort of aye.
All right. So we're 7 minutes past our planned continuance. I propose we try to vote.
Yes.
We're doing pretty well on the agenda, and I think we should just go through it and just vote them up or down. So,
all right, I feel remiss in that there was something I had wanted to comment on and then I blinked out. So if before we vote, could we just go back to a particular section? I'll tell you which one in a moment.
yes, which one?
It's in 3. Hold on. Okay, it's on page 14 of 18.
Yeah.
And under 3.1 for the environmental health impact report, this is largely where we took things and we created a bulleted list rather than a run-on that we had and passed and then added more words to it. But it was recommended to us by a prior town council to add section G, an application for approval of a comprehensive permit under MGL Chapter 40B. And as I thought about this, we're trying to call out things. I mean, we have things that might vary or signify how large something is, like the planned unit development or subdivisions. And that's, again, just to help define projects that would qualify. So the 40B is really almost like any other project that would be affected by all of these other things, like construction of the gross floor area of the development, or how many gallons of flow, or something else. And it strikes me as maybe not appropriate to specifically identify a 40B project because they are not different necessarily. They're except that they have the option of only being measured against state level regulations. And after that, it's really about building in some of the units are affordable, and that's more of a financial aspect of it. And I'm wondering if it would seem odd, and I did check with town council on this. And they think it's not necessary because our other definitions would apply to a 40B like any other subdivision or project. So
I think that's reasonable. But I think deleting that line is probably more of a modification than I would feel comfortable making.
okay,
Just as we've said for everything else.
yeah,
I agree it is somewhat redundant. I don't know if it's harmful.
okay,
I think the approach would be if we feel like that is too redundant or potentially harmful, that the approach would be to vote down these changes. Because I wouldn't feel comfortable sort of striking that line at this point, I don't think. So.
I could understand that.
I think that's fair, Matt. That would be, it would be removing something we were going to add. I mean, a whole subsection.
Yeah, and I think it's substantive, and I think it's things people would have comment on.
Okay,
I think fine to consider just sort of not voting in these changes if we feel like that's not there, or we can readdress it at a future point.
all right, sounds good.
Other comments from the board?
So with respect to that, would that be then just not doing anything in this section or?
Yeah, I think the choice would be we either adopt everything as is or we make
Okay.
no changes. And so adopting everything as is would include that point G. But then making no changes would revert it back to how it was before.
And I would rather have the clarity of this and deal with whether that causes any confusion or redundancy or is viewed some other way, who knows?
Yeah. And of course, we can always come back and change it next time.
Okay.
That's part of our continuous regulation review. All right.
Leora.
Okay. So let's see here. Ellen, as we go through this, it seems to me like the things we're voting on are basically the things in blue, because that is summarizing the changes. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely accurate.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through each blue item and we'll basically ask for a motion and then we will vote. I think if there are clarifying questions, that's fine. I would like to avoid, because we have already had public discussion on all these points, I'd like to sort of avoid a lot more discussion on them. All right.
Right, and one more thing, Ellen, do we need to note, we found a few just this evening, some typos, word spellings.
Yeah, they'll be noted in the minutes of the discussion of the section, and typos don't count to change really.
All right.
All right. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 1, as shown under item 1 here, amending the title of section 3.4.0 and adding clarified language to section 3.4.1G?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any clarifying questions? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve amendments to Regulation 1, Section 4 application procedures, renaming subsection 4A, clarifying requirements, renaming 4B to 4C, and adding a new 4B?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any questions or comment? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendment to Regulation 3 domestic water supply, deleting the word domestic from the title?
So moved.
Section 2, Regulation 2.
Regulation 2, sorry.
So moved.
Seconded.
And
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right, do I have a motion to approve amendment to regulation 2, section 1 permits? Deleting requirements of human occupancy and clarifying a suitable water supply is required prior to issuance of a building permit.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Third.
Hearing none, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Where was I? I apologize because I got thrown off because I think my air conditioner just turned on, which makes absolutely no sense in October.
You're
Where
at number 5.
The number 5, thank you. All right. The condenser is outside this wall and very loud, and it really threw me off. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2 Domestic Water Supply Section 1 permits, deleting the existing language in 1.3 and replacing it as shown below?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2 Domestic Water Supply Section 2 definitions, amending most sections to sort of clarify and update all of the below specific definitions?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right, do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2 Domestic Water Supply Section 3 Sanitary Performance? Degendering it and adding well development to the first sentence and or development to the second sentence.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right, do I have a motion to approve amendments to Regulation 2, Section 4, well drillers, updating the requirements regarding certification?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2, Section 6, well location, with some administrative changes, renaming of subsections and adding a new subsection G?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve amendments to Regulation 2, Section 7, number of wells, adding some clarifying language?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, do I have an motion to approve an amendment to Regulation 2, Section 8 pump houses, which is just updating the referenced manual?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the amendment to Regulation 2, Section 11 on well specifications, modifying Section 11.1 and then adding new subsections on well installation and development and static water level?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve amendment to Regulation 2, Section 12 tests, renaming the section and adding a new subsection H on well flushing?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any comments? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve amendments to Regulation 2, Section 15 on well abandonment, which is retitling it, adding some language to subsection A, renaming B, and then adding a section C on well repair?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendment to Regulation 2, Section 16, which is changing the referenced standard for equipment?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2, Section 17, just changing the title of the section?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve an amendment to Regulation 2, Section 17.1 sanitary protection, amending the sentence and adding language about disinfection and decontamination?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2, Section 17.2 and sampling and quality, and adding language that samples should be collected by a qualified professional and including Board of Health drinking water standards?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendment to Regulation 2, Section 17.3 on laboratory testing, adding language in multiple sections here on methods for testing, compounds to be tested, and the standards thereof?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion here? Hearing none, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2, Section 17.4 water conditioning, amending the language to clarify when it might need changes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, abstain.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to amend or a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 2, Section 18 enforcement to further clarify our abilities to enforce these provisions?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, amending the title of the regulation to further clarify what it contains?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 3.1, clarifying and reformatting the requirements for producing an EHIR?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 3.2, which is an administrative change removing capitalization of the name of the permit?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion on capitalization? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 5 definitions, adding subsection numbers and adding a new definition of a project?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion here? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 7, water supply, removing the word domestic, and then adding a second paragraph on semi-public water supplies?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 8, sewage disposal, which changes the word lots to units and adjusts the minimum wastewater to be consistent with other standards?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation Section 9, which is removing the redundant words projects for?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 10, bedrock disruption, adding the phrase as part of a project to subsection A?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 13, which is removing per lot or 1,000 cubic yards to make the standard the same across lots and projects?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, nay.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
And do I have a motion to approve the amendments to Regulation 3, Section 14, which is a minor grammatical correction, making the words wherever the single word wherever?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion on how to spell wherever? Hearing aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Congratulations.
Wait,
Wait, two more
Uh,
voters to go.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay. You know, these are new regulations. It's not just slight grammatical error corrections. These are brand new.
no, that's the
Never had
only,
them before.
Rebecca, the only change in this was taking out the space in the word wherever. That's the only change in this regulation.
We wrote this regulation. It's a new regulation. We didn't have anything for multi-unit development.
Rebecca,
Water
Section 14 currently exists in our regulations. The only change being made to the current regulation is changing the spelling of the word wherever.
Go look at the Sherborn.org website Board of Health sub web page, and the current regulations are posted there, and you'll see the section in there.
But you're welcome to vote against the respelling if you'd like. We were waiting on.
I'll abstain.
And then
Darrell
Daryl.
Beardsley, aye.
All right. Thank you all. We made it.
Congratulations.
Good stuff.
So,
But
I
our
think-
princess is in the next castle.
Now, the
I'm sorry.
next step is I have to type these all up. I will have to have them published in the newspaper, and they will take effect upon publication. So Monday's a holiday. Then I'll be working on the minutes. I won't be able to start working on these probably until I get back from vacation. At that point, I'll have the October 18th minutes and the November 1st minutes. So it will take a while for me to get these published, but you voted them. They won't be effective though until they're published. So I'm sorry, I'm going to be delaying this a bit more, but I planned this. I'm going away.
It's fine. You're allowed to go away.
that's okay. I think for us, it feels good to have finally gotten to vote.
Yeah.
For something that we worked hard on.
Yeah. And it's been, I mean, we started this process last summer. It's been over a year to try to make these changes. And I do think that overall they're better. Not perfect, getting better. All right. I think we just have 2 items left. 2 and 3 under chairs business. Is that accurate?
Yes.
The October 18th.
Yes. And then of course,
Agenda, right.
all right. So Julie, do you have an update on your discussions with this Council on Aging? I'm guessing that might be the shorter of the 2. So I'm going to tackle it first.
It's definitely, I will make it extremely short. I did talk to Zach Ward, and he was great at filling me in. The long and short of that is Pine Hill is our designated emergency shelter, but since that's really not a great option, they have, he can look at open shelters in the area through the FEMA network. But really, if we're looking for a cooling center, the library is what a lot of towns do. And so we would be using the library if it was open. Otherwise, it could be town hall. I think the things that kind of stood out for me is, I mean, they do a great job in terms of emergency systems, but all of the messaging requires you to be able to use either social media or the internet. And so our messages go out on Nextdoor or Facebook. If you're on the town listserv, it gets emailed to you, or we have a reverse 911, but you have to sign up for all of those things, or you have to use social media. That was one of the things that came out in talking to Sue, is that we have a lot of older adults who they're not digital natives. They don't actively use social media or the internet or have access to it or feel comfortable getting information that way. There was actually a really interesting statistic I heard on the news this morning about a 2021 Pew survey that found, and this was a national survey, that 40% of 65 and older don't have a smartphone. 25% of households that make less than $30,000 don't have a smartphone. And roughly 25% of seniors just don't use the internet at all. And so that's pretty consistent with what Sue was kind of in her observation. And so we have this is kind of a known, understood issue within our town, is the communication. How do we reach everyone? We certainly reach a majority, because a majority do use the internet or social media, but we're not reaching everyone, particularly the more vulnerable of our population. Kind of take homes that we got is one of the things that she found that was really interesting is they're having repeated requests from seniors who are needing help purchasing generators, and which is not one of the things that we necessarily think about, but certainly would factor in if you are trying to well, I mean, pump water or even just cool your home or heat your home. And the other kind of take home and that she had, and this is really consistent across many domains, is I think you may know, they host lifetime learning classes kind of on a semesterly basis, which I think are very well attended. And she suggested, I think her understanding was there are a lot of residents who are not necessarily going to talk about if they're having issues with access to cooling. They may not be comfortable discussing that. And we really don't have a good scope on, even if people have even a single room in their home that they can retreat to. That's kind of one of the gateway topics. And within, we had back in 2018, a climate change municipal vulnerability report that really cited public education as a key piece. And it's also within the COA community needs assessment. And so one of the things, and I know that Sue talks to our sustainability coordinator, Dorothea Von Herter, but I'll mention to Dorothea, there is, for the climate action plan, we have a steering committee, which I'm joining around this issue. And so just kind of recognizing that this is a multi-pronged approach that's needed. I think that was really the take home, and just kind of reiterating that our emergency systems for isolated acute events has been okay, even though we don't necessarily know if there are seniors struggling in their homes, but what have been isolated acute events are going to become more frequent and more persistent. And as we said, over the next couple of decades, it's going to go from a minority of the days over the summer to, not a majority, but certainly a high number of them. And so this is a kind of looming issue coming down the road. That's all that I wanted to say on that topic, and that the COA does a tremendous amount with minimal resources, and they're impressive, and we're lucky to have them.
I want to raise a couple questions about things I had heard in the past that the town would do, so, or other groups too. There used to be sort of long ago, people did phone chains, right? Something would happen and everybody, one person would call two and they would call two, etc. But there are automatic calling systems that you put in a list of numbers and they would call. And I don't know if the town is currently using that for outreach to seniors who may not be using, call their landlines if that's what they have. And also the police and or fire had lists of people who might be homebound or other special issues, or maybe not have access to this, or have special needs, that equipment that needs to be able to run in a power outage that's helping them medically. And they would also check on people at different times, different events like a big storm. Is that still happening? Did anyone mention if any of those things are still ongoing, or are they systems of the past?
So in terms of the phone, Sue did intentionally bring up that cellular phones are not really a reliable option, and it was her experience that in a power outage that a landline would go down, and so that phone network, I think, kind of gets, with the lack of power, gets cut off.
Actually, landlines are the way to get through. I mean, they do work. What doesn't work are cordless. If they're, that doesn't work. So
I think it's really hard to find a corded phone. Am I right about that? I think
I guess that's why we keep ours. It's just for that reason.
I could be wrong. I've convinced my mother to give up her corded phone, but it took me a decade. So anyways, and I had not heard about a list of kind of homebound, higher needs folks that the police or fire could contact. That Zach did not mention that. It might exist. It just didn't come up on our discussion. But that is how to keep that list current, right? Given that people's medical conditions change. That's what I would certainly wonder, because if that list magically was current, that would be amazing, right? Then again, what you might think of as a needs to be called day might be changing. And again, that's not necessarily sustainable over the long term. I mean, really the sustainable option, as you had mentioned, Daryl, this is kind of a composite of COA and maybe energy and sustainability, finding affordable options for people to install and operate even one room in their home that they can retreat to. How to make that just a commonplace thing that people have access to it. So those are great points. I did not know that used to exist, Daryl, the homebound list.
I'm trying to remember when I heard about that, and it could have been at least maybe a dozen years ago. Might have been.
We talked about it a little bit for vaccination drives. For when we were talking about making COVID vaccines available or flu vaccines for people that were unable to travel. But I don't know that it was up to date then.
But it existed, Matt?
I believe, I think so. I never, saw it, but I believe it existed because we did have discussions about like people not being able to sort of get out and having some access to some sort of list to offer people.
Yeah.
There were, the VNAs were offering remote, not remote, but like door-to-door vaccination for people that were homebound.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I did not know about that. That's excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. That's all I have, other than hopefully work will happen between things like the school and this. And I'll just kind of keep my finger on the pulse and check back in.
I think one other potential action item we talked about before was, which I don't know if we ever got clarity on, is the presence of a sort of Board of Health rep on the Public Safety Commission, because I think there's up there too.
Yes. I went to the website, to the town website, I'm sorry, which is sometimes current, but not always the most up to date. It did list Rebecca as a liaison. Rebecca, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. And then when I attended one of the meetings, they told me that I was taken off and that Daryl was it. So I would love to be the liaison if it still exists, or if you're interested in having me there, but whatever you want.
I was never put on that.
I have no
I think
idea.
I
That's just what
attended
I
for
was told at a
something.
meeting.
Oh, well, I was
don't
never
know.
told, so.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have done it, so I didn't have time.
I didn't know that that committee still existed.
I think they revamped it. It had been the traffic safety for a long time. And then they sort of folded that in together to something else. And as far as I know, it's only met once or twice.
I think it's the public safety.
Yeah,
and then the
Public
traffic
safety
safety was separate. And then the traffic safety was really kind of a subsection of public safety. And it was traffic safety that was kind of
I was never on that. I was on the one that was public
safety, right? And so
we met for like
on
2
that,
years.
Rebecca, if you attend that, if you're already doing that, then great.
I didn't know that it got revitalized. I went to meetings for like 2 years, maybe even 3. And then they disbanded, I thought. But if they're uniting, I'll be happy to represent us if you're interested in me going.
Would it be the select board, Daryl, that we checked in, or would it be Zach Ward?
If they revitalize this committee from the one that existed before, and as I said, they were meeting, they had regular meetings, but they felt that there wasn't enough for them to sink their teeth into, essentially. So they requested to be kind of disbanded or something. But if it's following the same format, it's up to the Board of Health to decide who is appointed. And we had a non-voting role, though. For whatever reason, they decided to limit who voted and who participated.
what were they specifically voting on? I got it was more of a kind of update and collaborate.
Yeah, I don't know.
They covered all sorts of subjects and they had people from many different committees sort of representing each committee's interest. And so they would sometimes discuss, health stuff, but most of the time it was, the highway department and the traffic safety committee made a report every time, and all the different committees, select board. And then sometimes people had questions, but it was good. I thought it was good. It was a collaboration of different groups. No one did anything, like there were no, I think it was more a communication thing, not necessarily a decision-making group.
I see Courtney has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just, it's not to do with this committee. Even though there's a select board member here, he refuses to comment. Actually, I just wanted to I just wanted to acknowledge about all the hard work you did on those regulations, being in the midst of endless regulations hearings myself. It's hard work and it's sometimes thankless, but like I see you all and I appreciate you, and don't lose your mind, Matt.
I will, but not from this.
Thank you.
It was
Thank you, Courtney.
our day that led up to this that's making my mind go away. All right, so should we, I think Rebecca's interested. Julie, I got the sense you're also potentially interested in being involved in this, but I don't want to speak for you.
If Rebecca has history at this, if she needs an alternate, I'm happy to be an alternate. But otherwise, Rebecca, I'm gonna leave you to it.
Sure. If anything happens, I'll be happy to report back, or if there's anything overlapping with us.
Sounds good. All right. So then I think our last item is
Well,
with the
you could
ZBA.
do the other easier one, the agenda for the next meeting, and then the other one's complicated.
Let's just do this, and then the agenda we'll do quickly at the end.
Okay. All right. So the issue of, I forget how it's worded on the agenda. Hold on.
Versus private wells and how best to interact with the ZBA. Because I think there have been a sort of unfortunate overlap between our meetings and ZBA meetings in which there have been some sort of public comment and other discussion of public versus private wells.
Right. So this is specifically related to a project, one of the multi-unit projects that can go in, or it could apply to any multi-unit project, because we've had a number of them that have employed this technique. So North Main Street, Abbey Road, the fields at Sherborn almost did it and then changed their mind to something else. I'm trying to think of what other projects have had this phenomenon, but in any case, a public water supply is triggered for residential at serving 15 connections or 25 people for more than 60 days a year. So any resident really qualifies under that, and the people living there. But, and so there are extra requirements associated with that, mostly around having a wastewater treatment operator, but for these smaller systems, that doesn't mean having someone there full time. You might get, depending on the size and complexity of the system, it could be an hour a week, it could be a few hours a week, it could be days a week, it just depends. And then there are reporting requirements, that testing and reporting requirements specified by Mass DEP, and the public water supply would get a schedule from them on, during what months are you testing for what parameters. And there are monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual, every other year, and triennial testing. So it varies according to what's known about the water quality in that area. So that's the general gist of what it means to be a PWS. And as you've seen, when we get the reports from Leland and, well, now they're combined, so Leland Woodhaven, it's a way to inform the consumers about what the quality of water is that they're receiving and other fun facts about their PWS. So sometimes things get divided up at these projects to avoid those reporting requirements. And there may be other reasons for doing it, but that's often a driver. And so there's a discussion about whether it's better to have separate water supplies. So each cluster of homes, if there's less than 24 people living there, and I don't mean actual people, but by bedroom count, 2 people per bedroom, then you can have, or less than 25, so 24 and below, you can have a private water supply. And then where the well is serving whatever that group of units is, that land around that well and access to it has to be owned by the users of that well so that they can guarantee access to the well if it needs repair, maintenance, treatment, something else, sampling. So that's just a legal construct of how you draw lines, from the units themselves to their well. And it often ends up looking like rat tails, they're called in the development world, of these skinny pieces that might run over to catch a well. And they can be spread around a development. A public water supply could then be like one big well that serves a group of units, or it could be a series of smaller wells that all connect, and then the feed out to the units goes through a single point. And that's what makes it a combined system. So it doesn't have to be one well. It can still be multiple wells. So I gather at one of the ZBA meetings, a discussion took place about individual wells being better, and I'm not sure exactly what all the rationale is. I'm trying to remember back to some arguments I've heard in favor of it. I think some of the arguments were where they could be placed versus a large well on a particular property. And so being able to place them farther away from the septic system and what the radius of protection was around the well, that kind of thing, was an argument in favor of it. But again, you can still have a PWS with multiple wells, so that could go either way. There was a discussion about what are some of the other reasons. I believe there's also a proposal to say, okay, you can still offer the same protections by applying all of the PWS requirements to those individual wells to offer them the users the information that a PWS would have. Although that greatly increases the cost, because you could essentially connect a series of wells if the multiple wells are viewed as better somehow, and run them through a single point, and therefore be testing, except for occasional raw water samples, which means going to the wellhead, running one test, as opposed to, say, you're connecting 5, then running the same suite of tests at 5 different wells. The other thing for resiliency that I see is when you interconnect a series of smaller wells, if there is any well that might be prone to fail, for example, You have two wells that are on the same bedrock fracture. And for whatever reason, one has sort of preferential access to the water and might pump more. And if they're both pumping the same, one might actually pull more water and make it harder for the second well to get an adequate supply. So it's hard to know what the resiliency is for each individual well, but if they're combined, you're having a better chance of maybe providing equivalent water across all those service points. So those are some of the main issues I see with it. And in terms of, and I did contact DEP to check with what it means to get an approval from them for, or a determination, because in some of these cases, it's a determination that the water supply as proposed does not meet the criteria for a PWS. And so they have those rules that they apply. Major one being number of people served by the individual well, the other major criteria being ownership of that land around the well. So, and then there's other data that they ask for and information, but those are the main points. So they're never really saying the PWS or the private well route is better. They're just saying whether or not it qualifies or does not qualify as PWS and is subject to the requirements of PWSs. So, so that's the main point. So I believe this is going to be an issue with whatever ZBA meeting will be coming up next for the Farm Road 40B homes. And again, not having heard the arguments directly myself, I have not had time, but I will try to listen to tonight's meeting and then the prior meeting that we haven't been able to attend to hear what the discussion points have been about that. So I think they'll want the Board of Health to be weighing in. And I could share my personal opinion at the moment of what I would think would be more robust for these kinds of projects, but I don't know if people have comments or questions before I get into that, because partly we need to decide, like, what are we going to be telling ZBA as a board?
So
I'm just processing. Go ahead, Matt. I don't have anything because I'm processing.
I thought you were frozen, or you were frozen on my screen, so I couldn't tell if you're about to speak. So go ahead.
No, I was just acknowledging that my silence was because I was thinking, and I don't actually have anything to regurgitate to you right now. That was helpful.
I unfortunately had to step away to call about a patient in the middle, so I missed some of that. But I guess I would be interested in hearing your personal opinion. I have my own too.
Okay.
I haven't let us know what you think.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that I think an integrated network of wells would be more resilient for the reasons I mentioned about pumping. And what happens, so here you have a community or a large project that's connected in other ways, either through the shared roadway or what have you, and maybe common spaces, or just mere proximity to one another. And so there's 3 homes in one section that is connected to their own well, and that well isn't working well or producing enough, or something's wrong with the quality, whatever it is, they're kind of on their own. And yet maybe the other X number of wells are all doing just fine. And maybe they're doing fine because it somehow had a negative impact on that other well. It's just hard to determine without extensive testing up front, and even then you're really not going to know for the long term how the dynamic is going to go. And I'm not seeing, and again, for the costs for testing, I think aggregating wells, or having one big well, but aggregating wells makes a lot of sense. And in terms of if there was really some plan to then have each of the owner groups of the individual wells conform to some sort of schedule, who's enforcing that, who's overseeing that, is that their choice, is it regulated, not regulated? We don't have the staff to do that. That's a lot to take care of. We don't have the systems, like right now, Mass DEP, or laboratories who do this kind of testing that are certified by Mass DEP also have all of the software to automatically upload into DEP's tracking system all the data. That's not something that we have, and that would just be a lot of person hours to be able to review this kind of thing. And then what would we do about that if there was something askew? So I don't think we have the ability really to pursue this with current staffing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I agree with you on the resiliency issue, and I do like the idea that it lowers the bar for monitoring, and that you don't have to rely on monitoring every individual well. It also pushes it into the semi-public water supply we just defined, which gives us a little bit more regulatory leeway. And so I sort of...
Yeah, sort of, but no, this project's already started, so this that will not apply.
Federal concept forward.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the other thing that might have to happen though is there's the zone 1 around a public water supply is just a circle. It's a fixed circle. There's a zone 1 and a zone 2. Zone 1 is just calculated based on the volume of water pumped out of the well. And then there's a formula, and that defines the protective radius around the well. And within that, there are rules for PWSs, like no storage of chemicals, no use of pesticides, that kind of thing. No buildings. There are a lot of PWSs that are grandfathered in that have all roadways and buildings and septic systems and all the rest inside the zone 1, but no longer permitted. And the owner of the well for that kind of PWS has to have control over the zone 1, which the easiest form of control is just ownership of the land, because then you can control what activities take place on the land. The other way for control is to have an agreement with, if your circle cuts over onto someone else's property, that you set up some agreement that they will abide by those rules for PWSs. For example, if the zone over the zone 1 overlaps with town conservation land, maybe the town would be willing to enter into an agreement to not store chemicals there, etc. So there are some ways to get around some of the, and DEP acknowledges that that kind of contractual arrangement would be acceptable to them for a PWS.
I mean, it seems to be that overall there are a number of advantages to sort of this interdependent system. And while our recently adopted regulations can't help with this project, I think being consistent with sort of the advice we give for this and other projects going forward would allow us to sort of use, because we've defined some of these things for semi-public as well in our current regulation. And so I guess I would like to be consistent with what we sort of recommend here versus what we sort of recommend for similar projects that I'm sure we will see again. So I think
right. And in this case, we're really being asked, since we're not, well, we're in a funny position here with the private well issue. We are the only regulatory authority for private wells. The state has absolutely no jurisdiction. They passed it on intentionally to local boards of health. So there will have to be permitting that comes from us. But for process, everything really goes through the ZBA at the moment in terms of evaluating the project. So they're going to want the Board of Health's input on how to handle this well issue in general. So we can make recommendations to them. They'll take it under advisement and then they'll come up with something. So that's the process. And whenever they set their next meeting, hopefully it's sometime when one or more of us can make it to that meeting, and either we have something that we've decided officially that we're going to report, or we have to come up with some mechanism for how we decide and relay information.
Yeah, I think it would be most helpful if we could have a conversation with them. And so
Yes.
It probably makes sense. I don't off the top of my head know whether they're continuing to overlap with our meetings or whether.
Well, we provided them with a calendar. Ellen, the royal we, Ellen provided them with when our meetings are. So the effort is going to be made to be able to include us. You know, one thing we could do, depending on how many people could make whenever they set up the next meeting, is we can set up a meeting for the Board of Health and then open up our meeting there and then have a discussion with them there. That's an option.
That actually might be a good approach to take. I think that's easier than a sort of this back and forth, because it feels a little, I haven't watched their meetings, and so it feels a little too theoretical at the moment. And so that might be a reasonable thing to do, is to sort out, we're going to discuss this, when they would like our input, and then we can make it a joint meeting so that more than two of us can go and share our opinions.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So probably the action to do is reach out to them and say that we think that would be the best way to do it, and then try to work on scheduling.
Yeah. Okay. I will do that.
Don't they decide their next hearing date
tonight? Yeah. Right.
Which,
and I don't know how many they're planning and how they're doing it. So
like
we did
to go over there now. No,
our schedule meetings so that they would hopefully not book it at the same time as our meetings.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. And they're going to make that decision shortly, I believe.
Yeah.
Right, it'll be a day, it'll be on the 18th, no, not well, but it'll be on somebody's birthday. How about that? And
Every day.
or sometime when coincidentally none of us can go. So, all right. So.
Well, let's just see that. Should we just wait and see? I guess that's all we can do right here.
I think let's wait and see what the timing is, and then let's figure out whether we have a couple representatives or whether we have a quorum and make it a real meeting.
Okay. And then let's say they pick a date that only less than a quorum of us can attend. We could have maybe a half-hour special meeting sometime for us to just talk about what the board wants to say. And in the meantime, I'll try and gather more information about what's been presented so far, and you know, have the plans changed anymore as a result of these earlier sessions. So
okay, I think that sounds
right.
Because they have not addressed the well issue yet. That's your understanding?
I believe it's been discussed a few times already.
Oh, okay.
But you know, again, I don't know exactly what's been said. People have told me bits and pieces. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what for like the advisory hearing that was not last week. Like planning and select board just basically planned on put a meeting on the schedule just in case 3 people showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've passed with like school committee meetings and things like that, where
Yeah, exactly.
So I think let's put this schedule and then maybe Ellen, once we have that, maybe Ellen can send it out to all of us and we can
Mhm.
with either provider availability and then decide if we want to make a meeting.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good.
Thank you for all that, Daryl.
Thanks, Joe.
Sure.
So then I think the last item is update on the agenda for the 18th. Ellen, what do we have on the book so far? I don't know if you're talking, Ellen, you're muted.
Oh, my goodness, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All we have, the next meeting is one variance hearing. But as I said before, I'm really hoping this is a really small meeting because I'm gone the day after and won't come back until the next meeting. So, but it's a pretty open agenda right now.
Okay. So one variance, it sounds like we will hear about the heritage as we always do.
Yeah,
Is that the 32 Saddlebrook that we're gonna have the?
no, they'll have to wait until the next meeting. It's they don't
got it.
have
Thank
time
you.
to notify the abutters. This one will be 59 Spywood Road.
Okay.
And then I don't think there was other carryover yet from today.
Yeah, just heritage, so,
Okay.
because the regs are done.
Regs are done.
Maybe
Or
we
they're
can,
never done.
Well, that's-
we can have a discussion of proposed future amendments.
That sounds fine. We can put that on the agenda for next time.
Okay, I will write a letter.
Okay.
Write a letter?
Well, put it in writing for you.
Oh,
Oh.
okay, got it.
Wait.
Yeah, that'd be
Sound-
great.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. All right. Okay, I think that's it then.
Yep.
Great.
Great.
Shall we end? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Seconded.
All right. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
Good
Have
night.
a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody. Bye.